Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode 137. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by the courageous Chris Raygun. Chris, how are you today?
I'm good. Well, courageous? Yeah. What's that for,
It's just a little alliteration. It's a little alliterative.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know? Yeah.
I don't know.
You seem like you're in a real good mood today.
Yeah, I woke up from like so I had like a really good dream, but I'm at the stage in my waking up that I don't remember what the hell it was. I just remember that it was really good. You know?
Sure.
I was just like,
sure.
You know, it's nice to start the day like that. You know?
Yeah, it's always good to be confused and disoriented. And, I mean, that's usually the way I wake up. Because I sleep biphasically, as they say, like in two bursts, because I have to wake up, like Rush wakes me up to bring him out, and then I go back to sleep. I have the weirdest fucking dreams the second half after I've already been awake. And I wake up like so nervous when I wake up from that second sleep. That's why I look so tired all the time, I think, because I don't think I'm actually sleeping. I'm like going into the Matrix or something.
Yeah.
Some crazy shit. It's really quite unsettling, but welcome all to another episode of Sacred Symbols, our weekly PlayStation podcast. Remember, we're supported on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. Some 10,000 of you support us there, and you can do so to get early ad-free access to this show, as well as our Xbox podcast, Defining Duke, which is doing great. All of our shows are doing great. Have you seen, I don't know if you look too often, but on YouTube, we're doing like great.
Yeah.
You know, like the people are like, we're getting like a whole new audience of people listening to the show.
Yeah, it's really cool. I was checking out some clips. Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, we've been clipping everything out too. Those do much more modest traffic, but we're trying to like just find a few interesting conversations each week, because we know not everyone has time to listen to this fucking rambling nonsense that happens every week. So go check it out on YouTube. But yeah, support us on Patreon. You get all sorts of perks, including Sacred Symbols Plus, our weekly Patreon exclusive episode of Sacred Symbols. Last week, Chris did a solo mailbag that people really enjoyed. I ended up calling it That's Wild, and you can go check that out on Patreon. And next week, it's going to be a Hitman 3 spoiler cast. Now, as I understand it, it's going to be Chris, Maddie from Defining Duke, and then Dustin, who's not here with us this week. But yeah, so it's going to be a nice little amalgamation of Last Stand Media personalities. Chris.
Exciting.
Habroxia 2 is out, by the way. Just wanted to let everyone know. PS4, Vita, Switch, Xbox One, and PC. That's our arcade shooter. It has an 80 on Metacritic. So I hate Metacritic except for when it does good things for me. And so, so go check that out as well. Now, I do want to say something serious before we get into the more ridiculous shit that we talk about on the show. Because this one hit me like a ton of bricks. And I did want to say this as a podcaster. I do want to read this one out. Austin Abbott wrote into us on Patreon and says, "Hey, the Quiet Storm, Colin, and the Mailman, Chris. What's up, boys?" So that's a reference to a podcast I really love and he's going to talk about. Just wanted to say rest in peace to Chris Wessling from the Around the NFL podcast. It's been my favorite sports podcast for the past 7 years. I cried like a baby when I heard the news. The world lost a hero. Fuck cancer. Rest in peace, Chris Wessling. So people often ask Chris, and I know they ask you too on your show and on this show, like, what podcast do we listen to and what inspiration do we draw from other people? And I don't listen, as people know, I notoriously do not listen to video game content. I don't want to listen to video game content. I don't want it bleeding into my own content. I don't even want to hear other people's opinions, really. So I stay away from that stuff. So it allows me to get into all this other weird shit, right? And some of it is mainstream and some of it isn't. Like I had recently been turned on to this guy, Keith Samuels, on YouTube, who's like this black guy who speaks, I think, primarily to a black audience, but it's about relationships and men and women. And it's like it's so ridiculous. It's so I have time to, because I'm not listening to gaming stuff, to kind of find these other interests and these other random things. And one show I found randomly 4 years ago is the Around the NFL podcast. And it is a wonderful show. And it is funny as fuck. And it is so well put together. And one of the 4 hosts, who's known colloquially as Wes, Chris Wessling, died of cancer. And this happened pretty suddenly because he had cancer. He beat it. He was kind of on the mend. He was appearing on the show, but then he kind of disappeared off the show. And then I woke up last weekend and it was tweeted out that he had passed away. And I must admit, same as Austin, I cried when I read it. I cried. So I want to give a lot of respect and love to Chris Wessling and to the Around the NFL guys. They don't listen to the show. They don't know we exist, but that's a show that I really love, and I wanted to put that out into the ether. We miss you, Wes. He's a wonderful podcaster, and I wanted to give my respect to him. But Chris, let's get into the lighter stuff that we like to talk about here, and this one's all about you.
Oh no!
Big Swingin' Rick wrote in. Said, "Hey, you sons of a bitch. This is a question for Chris, meat between two breads, Ray Gun. It's been a pleasure to see you on video. You can learn a lot about someone by seeing their bedroom in the background. You can tell by my office that there's nothing happening here. But I noticed something alarming. Are you a 27-year-old man still rocking a single bed? Do you sleep like a vampire in a coffin? Do you top and tail when you are joined by a female caller? Please explain yourself. Much love." Now, I'm examining your bed now. It doesn't look like a single bed. Maybe it's a full size bed.
It's like a queen or like a king or one of those royal measurements. I actually don't really know what the difference between like a king and a queen is, because like from what I've seen, they're just like to me, I'm like short enough that like it's essentially the same thing. So it's like, I'm sure there's like maybe like an inch or two or some negligible difference. But
I'm looking right now.
Yeah.
Let's see. What's the difference? Amerisleep.com. What's the difference? A king size bed is 80 inches long and 76 inches wide.
Okay.
A queen size bed is 80 inches long, but 60 inches wide.
Oh, okay.
So the same length, but different width.
So I think I have the bigger one, because I made a point to get the biggest bed that I could possibly get. You know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to tell.
Yeah, I mean, the perspective.
Like, it's a weird.
The perspective of the camera is definitely a little bizarre, but no, I do not have it. I don't think I've ever had a twin. Like, I think I had to sleep in a twin bed at like a friend's house because he had a spare room, and that's where I stayed when I was like, I can't remember. I think it was in Virginia actually, or like something. And I had to sleep in a twin bed, and I'm like, I don't understand how people do this. I'm small too. Like I'm like 5'4", and I was like struggling to like stay on that thing. Like I can't imagine having a single bed.
I had a child's bed when I was a kid. What my family would call the big boy bed, I think.
Yeah.
And then at some point I got like a twin bed. And I remember that being, I had that throughout high school. And I remember having my girlfriend over from high school and stuff like that. And even just laying in bed watching TV was ridiculous. And then I remember going to college, and in dorms, everyone had twins. It was it was absurd, like the shit you were trying to do in college. And then finally, when I moved to California, I got a full size bed. Now the full size bed is the step between the twin and the queen.
Yeah.
And I lived with my girlfriend for years back then, and we slept in that fucking thing together. It's like unbelievable. I can't even believe that happened, because I've since gone to the queen, and now I have a king size bed. You can even get a bigger bed called the California King, which is basically a square. And I feel like the king size bed is too small for me now. So I don't know what was going on back then.
Yeah.
You got to get your good rest.
Yeah. You can't put a price on that. I feel like a bed is like one of those things where it's like, yeah, you're going to want to splurge a little bit on your bed, because that's just going to affect every
Yes, you are going to want to splurge a little bit on your bed. Yes.
I love it.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've decided, I guess we've come to the conclusion of that. Now, Sir Deathspank wrote into us real quick. Dustin's not on this week, but last week he talked about Ben, who is our newest employee. And he had brought up, because Sir Deathspank says, "Greetings, gentlemen. Last week, Dustin mentioned that Ben is the mayor of his town. Is this a joke, or was he being serious?" No, Ben Smith is straight up the mayor of Butler, Pennsylvania. The duly elected mayor of Butler, Pennsylvania. It's 100% true.
So I remember I first heard that. I can't remember when you first told me this, but you told me, and it glazed over my mind. It just washed over me, because I was like, that can't possibly be real. But I know it is. I know it's true, but it's like, I cannot accept that as reality personally. Like, I have to substitute my own.
I got to talk to him at some point. I mean, he was on Fireside Chats, my old show. Mm-hmm. And it might have came up when I lived in California, and we used to do the show in person, because I had his election sign in my office. And because I asked him for one, because I thought that was like so cool. But I got to get him to tell stories at some point. I don't know. Dustin's privy to them too, because they're really good friends. But there was something like he has like some sort of like super political feud with like the guy he beat in the election, and like they have this animosity. It's hysterical. Like the most local level of politics possible. It's good shit.
Yeah.
All politics is local, of course.
Yeah.
All right, what else is here? Oh, I wanted to let everyone know this because we were talking about the DualSense issues that people are encountering, the drift. You were talking about that, weren't you? Yeah. So there actually is a law firm, Chimicles, Schwartz, Crinner, and Donaldson Smith. Okay? It's not important what they're called, but they are a law firm that is currently doing an investigation into whether they can file a lawsuit about DualSense controllers. And they put out a questionnaire about this. So I want to let Chris and everyone else know. You can go to chimicles.com. It's CHIMCLES.com, or just Google it. And that's like the law firm's website. And then you could fill out the questionnaire, and based on the data they'll get, they will then determine whether they should sue Sony or not on behalf of the consumer. So if you're having problems with your DualSense, you should go fill that out.
Yeah.
Because you might be represented.
Wow. Chimicles, Schwartz, Kreiner, and Donaldson Smith. Imagine like having to come up with like a jingle for that. Like being the jingle person for this law firm. Jesus. Yeah,
it's a far cry from the law firm of Jim Sokolov or whatever the hell he grew up with in New York. Remember those like the Jim Sokolov. I wonder if some of these dudes like that are still practicing. I was like fascinated by those guys when I was a kid. The daytime TV lawyers.
Yeah.
You know,
they're always in the library in their commercials or whatever the hell.
Right, exactly. Like it's some stack of books, you know? I almost felt like they were, I mean, they definitely are like preying on people that just stay home all day. But I always loved the ones for, it was like, you know, if you got like asbestos poisoning or whatever. It's like they're just looking for that one dude out there watching right now. They're not expecting you to light up the calling board or whatever, you know? It's hysterical. Like, they're just looking for that one dude that got asbestos poisoning.
Have you been exposed to radioactive emulsion as a result of melted like soda cans? Like it's like call this, and it's like what?
Yeah, it's awesome.
What's awesome about that is that there's one person who's like, absolutely. There's at least one person who's
they
like,
nailed him.
They got my situation perfectly.
He was watching Judge Mathis, and there you go. Now you're calling up the law firm.
Judge Mathis.
So yeah, go check that out if you want. And then there was a Bloomberg story this week. I'm not even going to talk about it too much. I am curious about what you think about it, but this seemed like such a weird non-story. I feel like I don't want to make fun of Jason Schreier too much. He's certainly a good journalist, but I kind of feel like this is a scraping the bottom of the barrel story, because what he basically reported was that EA is going to decide Anthem's fate this week. It's like, okay, what is its fate? I mean, isn't that the story? So we don't know at the time of recording, but what did you think of that story?
I actually think it's interesting. I think the fact that they're having a meeting this week to decide the fate of something that they've presumably decided the fate of already. They were like, oh, hey, we're going to double down, and we're going to, you know, they showed like this huge, like, they had this whole information dump, and they showed like the screenshot where they had like a whole reworked system. They had like a whole reworked UI and a reworked loadout screen and a reworked customization system. And they're supposedly doing that, but now they're like, hey, we're going to call this week and we're going to decide whether or not we want to kill this thing. And it's like, that's a little weird. Like, the real story is like what the decision is, obviously. Like, so this is really just, I don't know if this is like necessarily a non-story so much as it is just like a precursor to something that will inevitably be like an interesting thing. But I think it's interesting that they're even having this conversation at all. Like, I feel like this is a conversation that should have been had when they made the decision to double down in the first place, you know?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. It almost feels like, and I think that they were doing this, it's very different from No Man's Sky, where it seemed like they were almost 1.5ing it in real time in person.
Yeah.
You know, like and putting it out and seeing what people think of it, which is cool. It kind of makes me a little bit concerned about the future of BioWare Austin. Not that I have any attachment to BioWare as a brand, because I don't anymore, but they can lose their jobs. EA is notorious for fucking shutting studios down. I mean, more than anyone else. So yeah. I'm a little worried about it from that perspective, and we'll see. But my prediction is that they're not going to save the game. I would feel like with Avengers and all this other stuff, it's like, no, man, you can't. You got to bring that A game, or you just don't. You shouldn't bother. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I tweeted about this too. I was like, they should look, man. They just kill this thing. Just put it out of its misery. It's like I feel like it's this Cronenberg monster that's just like begging to die. Like, just like, please let me pass on. and like put the talent that's working on, because like there's obviously talented people working on Anthem. The game looks gorgeous, like, and then the gameplay wasn't necessarily it wasn't like well designed, and there wasn't like a great loop there, but like it functioned really well. Like flying felt good, and like moving around felt good, and shooting felt pretty okay. Like it's not like it's not like there's nothing that could come from the sum of the parts of Anthem that could make its way into the next Mass Effect or make its way into the next even Dragon Age even. I think just move that talent somewhere where they can make something that's actually, wanted, as opposed to just like leaving them in this weird no man's land where they're just like toiling away on this thing that no one really wants to see. I mean, I was watching videos like last night of people who were like really excited about Anthem, and they're playing it again in 2021. They're like, I downloaded Anthem and it's exactly the same. And even the people who are so enthusiastic that they're willing to download the game again and play it, were just like, yeah, this is the exact same as I left it. I think we should just move on. And if they're moving on, certainly the studio should.
Yeah, I think I'll put my prediction out there and say that they're going to kill it, but we'll see. I just think there's too much evidence. I mean, even in their own family, they have games that are successful, that are persistent, like Apex Legends, and Battlefront 2 is still a really vibrant game, and others. They really just need to pick and choose. And it's funny because I actually just downloaded the Borderlands 3 because it's on PS5 now, but then I deleted it because I realized it made a new trophy list and I don't want that. So I'm playing the PS4 version, and then the Division 2 as well, and I actually bought the New York expansion last night too. I want to get back into some of these shooters. They're so fun. Mm-hmm. I don't know if people feel that way about Anthem, but
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think Anthem inspires a curiosity as to what maybe that game could have been, but not really what it is or where it's going.
Certainly.
So it's a shame.
It almost makes you wonder, like, would the game have even been better served if it was just a Mass Effect game? And I'm not saying a single player Mass Effect game. I'm like, could it have been some sort of multiplayer Mass Effect game? And wouldn't have been the first time we got Mass Effect multiplayer. We had that in Mass Effect 3, but I don't know. It almost makes you wonder, like, could you have just gotten more eyeballs by trying to embrace what people actually want from you? And it seems like they're going to do that now with obviously the Legendary Edition, and then of Mass Effect, and then whatever, Mass Effect 5, whatever they're going to call it. All right, Chris, a couple more just quick notes. PS5 is coming out in China this spring. I just wanted to note that. It's a pretty big deal.
Crazy.
So that's fun. Now, PS4, I think, was out there as well, but you have to have, it's like a very selective approach to the market there. So that's an interesting thing for the Chinese gamer. And then MLB 21, we talked about last week. The PS4 and PS5 stress test for the game begins February 23rd. So you can go to account.theshow.com/tech-test if you want to sign up for that. They're taking applications for it now. So if you want to play, be amongst the first to play the Show 21, especially on PS5, go do that. There are a couple of just quick things I wanted to get through before we talk about what we're playing. The first one comes from Video Games Chronicle, which is a website we are citing more and more. I don't know where this website came from over the last few years, but they're reporting that, and I'm looking at the story now, that E3 is coming back, or that the ESA is planning to do some sort of reimagined E3. And you'll remember that they were going to do this last year, but COVID kind of fucked everything up and they canceled it pretty late. What did you make of this news? I know you and I kind of differ on our approach on the importance of this show. Yeah,
I don't know if it's a digital 2021 event. I don't know. I feel like at this point, it's just throwing another hat into the ring of all the other digital press conferences that already exist and already clog up space. The purpose of E3, in my opinion and in my view, was always to just kind of consolidate this thing, so we didn't have just like constant, like the Resident Evil thing that we had like a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, where it was just like this weird 7 to 10 minute showcase of stuff that arguably really didn't need one. And E3 is for that. It's just like, hey, here's a Resident Evil trailer, and it's like, okay, cool, now moving on to the next BioWare game. And it's like it's a nice way to just have this one solid block of time that's dedicated to new shit in the industry. And now that E3's been gone for the last year, and all these different companies have like propped up their own like mini E3s, I feel like them coming back is just kind of adding to the problem that they would have solved if they had just stayed. I know they couldn't have just stayed for, world reasons, but this is just going to be another one of these. And, you know, I want fewer of these. I would prefer the old E3 back to the way it was, but obviously we can't do that. So it's a bit of a rock and a hard place here.
Definitely. The story makes a few good notes, notably that Jeff Keighley, who was going to be in charge of E3's digital revival last year, notoriously quit and then did his own, and that is called Summer Game Fest, and that apparently is coming back. And then they also noted that they spoke to one major publisher who said they were not going to participate, and that the participation costs at least deep six figures. So they're paying the ESA, and that's a little weird because ESA members already pay the ESA. So because they represent them in Washington as a lobbyist. So this is an interesting one. I just think they got to let this showcase die. And I agree with you. There's got to be some sort of remedy because this will live or die based on the publishers.
Yeah.
They have all the power. So I don't know who. I would imagine Sony is done with this and others, but maybe we'll see some. I just don't. I agree with you. That Resident Evil, some people were like upset that we were even criticizing, but that Resident Evil thing was weird. It was just totally not necessary. They could have just released a trailer and like a press release, and that would have been great. So yeah, you're right. There's got to be a marriage between like the opulent and unnecessary and then like the kind of under the rug, you almost missed it sort of situation. So we'll see. And it's worth noting that this was all broken and that the ESA doesn't even acknowledge that any of this is happening. So. All right, the second thing, we talked about BioWare earlier. I was wondering what you thought about this whole thing with Mass Effect, specifically Miranda's butt.
Yeah.
In Mass Effect 2. So the story basically is that there is and I guess I never noticed this when I played the game, but there's like Miranda in Mass Effect is supposed to be like a petri dish baby, human baby. She's made to be like perfect in every way. So I guess in order to, and she's sexual, she's hot. I mean, she's hot.
She's a femme fatale, I think, and as an archetype, yeah.
Right, exactly. So I guess the camera, because it's a third person game, I guess the camera was kind of accentuating her ass and like certain things. And I guess I never really noticed this, but I guess that's a change they made for better or for worse in the Legendary Edition. Obviously the original Mass Effect, which she is not in, has been the most altered. But this was somewhat controversial. What did you make of this news?
Yeah, I don't know. Like at first it annoyed me because I was like, why are you even changing anything? It's an old legacy title. No, surely this isn't going to upset anybody. Like if they didn't mention it, you know, because obviously they're the ones who said that they did this, right? Because like
right, yeah. So no, yeah, exactly. No one would even probably notice.
Like I don't know if I would have noticed. Like I don't remember that. Like I remember like screenshots of like Mass Effect where like Miranda's ass was like in full display, but I don't remember that necessarily in the game really. So at first it bothered me because I was just like, why are you doing that? But I read into it a little bit and it was like, supposedly there are moments where the camera accentuates that part of her body when she's like spilling her heart out to you and she's like telling you this like really like tonally, you know, not necessarily, it's like very juxtaposed. It's like a huge juxtaposition between like, hey, here's her ass and here's my suffering, you know. It's like so
here's my ass and here's my suffering.
It seemed to me more like hey, you know, she's obviously hot. They're not like changing her model or anything, but it's like, all right, well, yeah, maybe the camera shouldn't be here for tonal reasons. And I don't necessarily think that's really all that controversial. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. If they just removed all semblance of sexuality from her character, like throughout the entirety of the games, that would be just baffling. But in this one specific instance, I'm like, you know, I don't really care. Like this is usually something that would bother me, but the greater context seems fine enough to me, you know?
Sure. I don't really care either. I just, you know what it reminded me of? So you're not a sports fan, but the Dallas Mavericks, the basketball team, apparently stopped playing the national anthem before their games. And no one noticed until they said so.
Yeah.
14 games into the season.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I'm like, and I was almost thinking about, I'm like, how the fuck did no one notice this? You know, but it was like a point made that like everyone was upset. Like, how did the Dallas Mavericks do this? And I'm like, no one, but they're like, guys, it's been going for like a month and a half and you haven't even noticed.
Yeah.
You know, so
it doesn't really
matter.
It is
interesting
like,
how those things,
you know, it doesn't really affect the quality of the game either way. It's like, it's still the same game ultimately, but it's like, Yeah, they really didn't have to say this. Like I don't know why they even bothered to make a mention of this, but well.
The final, it's not that we haven't even gotten into what we're playing or the real news yet, but the final piece of news that I feel like was worthy of just getting an opinion on from you, Chris, was this whole thing about the Nemesis system. So for people that don't remember, there was a game called Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, published by WB. I think it came out in 2014. It was a PS3 and PS4 game, but the PS4 game, I think, if I recall, but I think the PS4 game was the only one with the Nemesis system, and it was like some sort of really complex back end thing where they had like, it had to do with, I guess, like, why can't I think of NPCs and like the way that you interacted with the world
and
all the shit. Anyway,
would have like really personalized connections to you based on like how you interacted with them in the game. They would have their own like voice lines. It was really cool. Like the Nemesis system in that game is like really, really awesome, actually.
Well, it's just worth noting that apparently, so WB has been trying to trademark or patent this for a long time, and they've gotten, so when you trademark or patent something, and I know this because I've trademarked things before, although I've never gotten challenged, you can, there's an open window where people can challenge your trademark. So if you trademark, like, if someone trademarked like Last Stand, actually it happened because someone trademarked something Last Stand, and we noticed. I'm like, oh, no, who cares? So these things are all challenged. So they had to go through like years of this. And then apparently just like a few days ago, it actually went through and they got the patent. And this created a little bit of a lot of consternation actually within the development community. Openly, people were talking about this from big studios. And they have a problem with not Monolith, who's the developer, but WB, because what they're basically saying is like, you can't trademark. It's almost the look and feel thing. It's like people build upon things, and the Nemesis system was built upon the action RPG shit that came before it and so on. So you should let people therefore build on your ideas. What do you think of that argument?
I think that's totally accurate. I don't know if you could really, this is going to sound absurd because we live in a future where that just didn't take place. But like, this is like if id had trademarked, first person, and it's just like, I don't know if you could, I don't know if you could really get away with that. I don't know if that's, I get wanting to protect your idea and wanting to be like, hey, you know what? I did this and this is mine. And I want to make sure that, that I get credit for it, I guess. But at the same time, it's like game development is all about building about what came before. Like I struggle to imagine a single FPS that exists today that is not built in some way off of the lessons learned from Doom, and that's like, it's like several decades back at this point. And the Nemesis system is cool, but it's not like, I don't know, it doesn't even feel like that much of a reinvention of the wheel. It's just like, oh yeah, that's a cool way to do that, it doesn't seem like something that could be patented or should be patented. I think this just leads into a really weird gray area where it's like, this is the same thing that happened with, by the way, I can't remember what company it was. Was it Bandai Namco that trademarked mini games during loading screens or whatever?
Yeah, it was like something weird. Yeah.
So because of that,
that's right,
all of our loading screens have to suck unless they're from Bandai Namco. It's like, why? Like, what is such a brilliant idea about having a mini game during a loading screen? Like, that doesn't seem like something that's patentable. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't get it.
I'm a little bit undecided on it, like from a practical standpoint.
Yeah.
But as a game, I make games now, and there would be no Hebroxia without Salamander.
Yeah.
There would be no Hebroxia without all of these arcade shooters that we didn't copy them. We were inspired by them. And then we put our own mix onto it. I mean, people don't know this, but and I'll talk about it more when I do the spoiler cast and the making of, but Hebroxia 2's intro is completely inspired by Castlevania 3. Like, totally. It's 5 frames, just like Castlevania 3's is. Like, we modeled it on that. It's an ode to it. I'm not saying that we necessarily didn't build our own stuff into the game. We did a lot, but we stand on the shoulders of giants. I mean, that's kind of the way you move forward. So, what it reminds me a lot of is the famous 80s Supreme Court case between Apple and Microsoft about the operating systems between Windows and at that time it was like Mac OS. It wasn't even Mac OS, whatever it was they were calling it. And these are basically just inverted versions of one another. It's a mirror. Microsoft's Windows is a mirror image of Apple's operating system, which was a copy of Xerox's operating system. And that was the argument. And that's because Apple stole it from Xerox, and Xerox stole it from the mainframes from the 60s and so on and so forth. And they built and they built and they built and they built. So I don't know. I just don't know how I would feel if I made it, you know?
Yeah.
But Monolith made it, and it doesn't seem like they're necessarily.
But that's the thing. It's like, imagine if you were on the team, if you were on the id team that made the original Doom, right? And you made this first person game, you invented a new genre. And then you see that genre kind of like take on a life of its own, and like some of the best shit come out of it, like Half-Life and like Portal and all these other like amazing like games that happen to take place in a first person perspective. I'd imagine you'd feel like a sense of pride in that, right? That you'd be like, man, I ushered in something that allowed all of this amazing shit to exist.
It's influence.
And it's like influence. I think there's a lot of value in just having that's okay to have pride, I think, in that. And this to me is just like, I don't know, it's like when a director does like when a movie director does like a specific camera angle, or like a Hitchcock shot, or like a Dutch angle, and it's like, oh, that's really emblematic of this director, but like this doesn't mean this director can't use it, you know?
Right. It's like the Sorkin walk and talk from West Wing and how influential that was on TV.
Or like the Kubrick stare. Like, I mean, the Kubrick stare is like a famous thing from Kubrick movies, but like, I mean, people can still do the Kubrick stare in movies. Like, it's not, I don't know. It just seems weird to me.
Well, what's funny about it too is that on one hand, the argument is kind of persistent, because what I've always been fascinated by was that there are basically versions of games that exist that were made. Let me back up. Bloodstained, especially Curse of the Moon and Curse of the Moon 2, are fucking Castlevania games. I think Konami can come in and be like, what? Like, I think they might be able to be like, it's a little, but it's almost like everyone's tempting everyone else to get involved. And I think the best way to do it is to just continue to build on that. Like, now that I'm still writing the role-playing game that we're going to make over the next couple of years, but it is heavily inspired by other games.
Yeah.
Unabashedly, people are going to see inspirations from it. That's the way it goes. And it goes back to what we were saying. We bring it up sometimes where Spielberg says like there are 6 stories to tell, and there are probably only so many games to make. And you brought up Doom. I mean, when you think about Wolfenstein, which predated Doom, there's already, I know you know that, but I'm saying there's a quantum leap between those two games already. You can just see what an evolution, if you just let the same team work on something, nonetheless, then let everyone else do it. So this episode of Sacred Symbols is brought to you by Curology. So I don't know if you knew this or not, but taking care of your skin is important, like probably far more important than you think. I've used the same lotions for years with frankly mixed results, and let's be honest, I can be a man of deep complacency. But thankfully, Curology helped shake me out of my skincare stupor. Curology is a simple service by design. All you have to do is go to Curology.com/sacred, that's Curology.com/SACRED, and take just a few minutes to provide Curology with some basic information about you and your skin. Based on the details you provide, Curology's licensed providers create custom cleanser and moisturizer formulas just for you, ones that can hone in on problems you might be facing, like persistent acne, dark spots, and more. Curology even provides other products like body washes and emergency spot patches, and I found the whole process as easy as can be, from the website right on down to the skincare routine itself, which takes me virtually no longer than what I was already doing, just with Curology's tailor-made products that fit well with my skin type and needs. Just a scrub of the face in the shower and applying some lotion to my skin when I get out, successfully navigating my Viking beard, of course, is all that's necessary. That's it. So if you want healthier skin without a heinous routine, give Curology a try. Head to Curology.com/sacred for your free 30-day trial. You just cover shipping and handling. Again, for your free 30-day trial of skincare cleanser and moisturizer, head to Curology.com/sacred. That's Curology.com/sacred. Let's end on this before we get into what we're playing. This one comes from Brandon Hardman. This is a big right turn for us, left turn really. So I've got a debate I need settled. My wife claims that it's dirty, in quotes, to wear clothes that you've just bought without having washed them first. I, however, think that a piece of clothing never fits as good as it does directly off the rack. This has become a minor point of consternation between us, and I was hoping you gentlemen could settle it. Which of us is wrong? Chris, what's your philosophy on this?
Well, first of all, I don't necessarily think that your clothes fit the best when they're just off the rack. I just think you're excited to wear new clothes. And that feeling of having something new is the thing that's making you feel like it's the best. Like, I don't think it actually makes a goddamn difference. But I don't think it's dirty. Like, I've gotten, like, jackets at like H&M or whatever the hell, and I'm like, I like this jacket, I'm gonna wear it out. You know, people do that. People wear clothes out of places when they buy them. It's like there's nothing dirty about that, unless
I mean, think about like. I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, don't people? I mean, a lot of people. I know people that have like go and buy a dress and wear it and then bring it back. You know, like I've known people that have done that.
Yeah, no,
you know?
I know people.
Like they have a party and whatever.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. Like, I guess if you want to be specific and you want to get really technical, I guess it would be like, chances are probably a lot of people touched it and a lot of people like, you know, probably messed around with it or whatever. But no one's like, people aren't like throwing up on these clothes. You know, have some
their balls on them.
Yeah, have some faith in your fellow man at least, just to know that like.
It's a lot to ask.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess it's a bad argument. Never mind.
Well, I don't know. I understand his argument in some sense where it's like, yeah, it feels good to wear a new piece of clothing.
Yeah.
I especially love wearing like new t-shirts. That feels really good to wear. But my thing is that I'm usually buying things online. Like I buy things from like Mack Weldon, or I buy whatever, you know, some t-shirts from a t-shirt company, or, you know, I get Stitch Fix or whatever. So no one's touching my clothes, I don't think.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they are. I don't know. All right, Chris, let's get into what we're playing. It says here you're playing a trio of games.
Yeah.
So talk to me about them.
Yeah, so I'm playing. Well, I want to start with Abraxia too, since I just recently got around to downloading it and playing it. I'm really bad at this. I'm really bad at like these kinds of games, but I really like it.
Good.
It's just the right amount of. It's not necessarily bullet hell, but it feels like it sometimes. Like sometimes I'm just like, yo, I'm really overwhelmed right now. But I like the layout of everything, and I'm really enjoying it, which is wild because I don't normally play a lot of like retro games because I feel like I missed the boat on a lot of them, so I don't necessarily have that much nostalgia for them. But I do like Abraxia quite a bit.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know if I played the first one. At least not all the way through.
The second one is a big quantum leap. The first one's not a twin stick shooter and all of that. It's just like an arcade shooter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to hear that you're enjoying it. It is hard, and it's not bullet hell. I hate bullet hell games.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, it's to each his own. I can't stand those games, so it's not like that.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not the design framework of bullet hell, but I mean, like sometimes I feel like just purely overwhelmed by like all the shit that's on screen. I'm like, oh my god. But it's really good. But like, I wanted to bring that up specifically because, you know, these are genres that I don't have the most nostalgia for. But one that I did have nostalgia for, and I brought this up before, was a game that you talked about. I think last week, Cyber Shadow. Which was a game that reminded me immediately of Shadow of the Ninja on the NES, which is a game that I just have a particular, like, I played a lot when I was a kid for no discernible reason. And I really like Cyber Shadow. Like, it's really, really good. It's like this side-scroller, like, kind of Metroid, kind of like, it's just Ninja Gaiden, but it feels, like, beautiful. The knockback is, like, fucking me up a little bit. I have to get used to, like... getting
it's very Castlevania like.
Yeah, the damage system feels very Castlevania, but
or Ninja Gaiden. Yeah,
but I really like it a lot, and that was another thing that was surprising me too, because I was like, oh man, these aren't necessarily games that I gravitate to, but I think because this reminded me of something that was like just a light shine in my head. It was like, this is a glisten of the past. And
by the way, I told you that he's the creator of the game calls out that game.
Yeah, Shadow
as an
of the
inspiration.
Ninja.
Yep,
Natsume, I think, made it.
Yeah, Natsume was the creator.
And so I've been playing that a little bit. I'm not super far in. I just got the fire. I think it's like down attack, the fire attack thing, whatever. Yeah. So I'm not super far into it, but I'm enjoying it. And the rest of my time,
they do a nice job of like of giving you new things every stage, which is cool.
It's paced really well. And the last thing, I've just been fucking around with Destiny 2 as always. There's a new season out. Season of the Chosen. It's good on the PvE front. I'm liking all of the like cooperative activities. I'm getting to the point though. I play Destiny a lot for PvP because I just like challenging other players and like testing my own mettle. And the PvP is not in a good state right now, and it feels very neglected. There's a lot of like balancing issues with new subclasses that they've added that makes it feel like just a bit of a chore. There hasn't been new maps or new modes and feels like years at this point. So I'm curious as to what the hell's going on at Bungie. I know there's like a huge focus on, you know, the the world and the lore and the story and like the seasonal model, and just feels weird to neglect PvP. I know you're not into this at all, but it's one thing that I've just been. I like this season so far, but they got to really pay attention to the competitive side because it's very, very weird right now.
Is it indicative, you think, that it's just not important, like that most people don't care?
It's hard to imagine that that's the case because like you can find games like really easily. Like it's people are definitely like on PvP for this, and especially because it's a unified grind kind of game. So even people who don't necessarily like PvP are incentivized to do it, just to grind out equipment and grind out legendary items and stuff. And it just feels weird that they just haven't updated PvP at all. Like they added these new classes and they're really cool, but they're ice classes, so they like freeze you. So like you'll be playing a game against other people and then all of a sudden you'll be frozen. And then you're like, all right, well, I'm basically dead. I'm just waiting to die. And then you die, and it's like, okay, well, thanks for that delay, I guess. I don't know.
That sounds annoying.
It's in a weird state. But I do like where it is mostly.
Yeah, it seems like it's doing great. I still see a lot of buzz for it.
Yeah.
Nothing too crazy for me. Yeah, I'm still messing around a little bit with Cyber Shadow. Still haven't beaten it. RFL, I'm still playing. I gushed about that game last week. A lot of people were writing in asking what it was called. It's RFL, ARA space FELL. It's a 16-bit style JRPG. It's great. And then I've platinumed Riddled Corpses EX Plus, which is just a really fun twin stick shooter on Vita. And I'm playing the next game that those guys made, Diabolical Mind, a Spanish studio. The next game is called Demon's Tier Plus, and it's on Vita, and it's similar, where it's a twin stick shooter, but you're like you can be a knight or a mage or whatever, and you're kind of climbing up a tower, and you only have a certain amount of time to get up. It's pretty cool. I'm just looking for these games to play in bed while I'm watching TV at night.
Yeah.
So that works for me. And then that's it. Like I said, I downloaded The Division and jumped in a little bit last night. But I gotta say, I gotta read a little bit about The Division 2. I'm a little confused about what's going on in the game. I don't know if I ever really understood it. I think we might have talked about this in the past, where the map is like really confusing, where I'm like, didn't I already do this?
So,
you know, and then it's like new safe house, and I'm like, but I think I already went to that safe house. Like, why is it telling me it's new? I don't, I'm confused. I got to read.
Yeah,
and understand what I'm supposed to do.
This is just a problem in live service loot based games in general, where if you haven't played for a while and you just jump in again, it's not going to be the same thing you left. And there's going to be like a lot of shit that's like way, way different, and you're just going to be kind of confused. Even Destiny, which is a game that I play consistently, like I jump in sometimes and I'm like, there's a what on Venus? You know, like I don't know what the hell's going on sometimes, and I have to find these like YouTubers who like have their like entire channels dedicated to like chronicling like and just like conveying these stories in like in digestible ways just to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to be paying attention to. But this is a problem that I just don't foresee ever being fixed with these games, because the whole point of these games is to be built for people to continuously play them, and
right,
if you got to feel rewarded somehow, and I guess your reward is being able to understand what's happening.
Yeah, or doing the whole map again, I guess, because that was the thing I was confused about, where I understand like the persistence. I'm also not a hardcore Division fan. I beat the game, Division 2. I really liked it, but I'm certainly not like the person that they're catering to. But yeah, I just need like some sort of, it just needs to be friendlier, right? Like, because I'm like, okay, I'm here. I want to play. Point me in the direction of what I'm supposed to be doing now. The one thing that happens with The Division as well, if you log in, and people might know this, is like when you log in for the first time in a while, it brings up all of these boxes and you're reading them for like minutes at a time. It's like boom, and then you like move a minute, like a foot, and then it's like boom, and you move a foot and it's like boom, and I'm like, oh my, and then some of them are like 3 boxes long. I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about, you know?
Yeah, it's all these like update, like these notifications that pop up. It's almost like getting like inundated with emails. And it's like you're just trying to find you. This is the same thing that happens in Destiny. The same exact thing. Like something's like Empress Keitel has arrived in the tower, and it's like, who is that?
Yeah, who? I'm like, what? You know? Yeah. And then it's like, go to the White House and do this. I'm like, dude, I don't. There's got to be a thing. We might have said this in the past, because I feel like we have, where it's like for just people coming back. Here's just some bullet, like it would be cool for it to read and be like, hey, welcome back for the first time in whatever, 150 days. You have 7 collectibles outstanding. Here are some new side quests for you to do.
Yeah. Or even just even just like a Star Wars ass text crawl that just explains what the hell is going on and what I should be paying attention to, Like, I think it's a good idea to like a welcome back or like a previously on, or something that would like kind of like get you up to speed, because it is overwhelming, man. Like sometimes it just gets sometimes I can't put 72 hours into Destiny 2 every week, like sometimes I gotta work, and then I don't know what the hell's going on, and it sucks because it's like it sucks because like these games are really cool because they really do like establish these like long games when it comes to narrative stuff, and like when it comes to like what's going on and like how systems evolve, and it's like it's really cool to keep in touch with it and to understand it. I just wish it was more accessible to understand. Because even I'm somebody who's like really into these things, and like I want to be more invested in this. You just have to let me,
Well said. Very well said. All right, Chris, let's get into the news. Now, before last night, because I wrote the show yesterday, I usually write the show the day before, and then we just add anything that's needed. It was pretty slow.
Yeah.
And then 3 pieces of news, huge pieces of news, all came out in the right before we started recording. So great timing. Thrilled as always that we moved recording times when we did, which was a long time ago now.
Yeah.
So let's start with number 1. Eagerly anticipated PlayStation 5 exclusive Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart finally has a release date. It will launch on PS5 on June 11th. In a PlayStation blog post written by Insomniac creative director Marcus Smith, one of the minds behind Resistance and Sunset Overdrive, the game is described thus, quote, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is a brand new, full-length adventure. When the evil Dr. Nefarious uses a device that can access alternate dimensions to find a galaxy where he always wins, Ratchet and Clank are separated. As they try to reunite, they will meet a new Lombax Resistance fighter, explore new and familiar locales, but with dimensional twists, and wield a whole new arsenal of out of this world weapons, end quote. Insomniac also showed off the game's stylish box art featuring Ratchet, Clank, and the still unnamed female Lombax from last year's announcement trailer, and digital and physical pre-orders are underway if you want some minor bonuses. The 3D shooter platformer Ratchet and Clank franchise began on PS2 when the original came to the console in the fall of 2002. This will be considered the 10th mainline game across the core and future franchises, though there are half a dozen spin-offs as well. The last Ratchet game came from Insomniac back in 2016 when the PS4 remake of the original game came to PS4 at a budget $40 price, selling millions of copies and reviving the franchise. This version of Ratchet, however, will cost $70. So, what do you make of this? I mean, I'm super stoked, and I feel like this release date is actually pretty perfect.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I think a summer release date for a game like this is pretty on point. I don't think it. There's no way it would have been a good fall game. It's just not that kind of AAA like bombastic fanfare kind of thing. But June 11th is like really, really good, and 70. It's definitely gonna have to like. I know it's a PS5 game, and I know it's like. Is the main reason I'm excited for it. Is it seems like the only real. I mean, aside from Returnal, which do we know when that's May?
Yeah, April 30th.
Oh, April. Yeah. So this seems like this even with Returnal, this seems like the first like real big like, hey, here's like a storied franchise, and here's like Ratchet's back, and it's like exclusive to PS5. It's like this is the first real real like consequential Sony launch title, I think. Or not launch title, but proper first party. And I think it looks good. Like, I'm excited. Like, I hope that it doesn't get too much shit for being $70, because I could see a lot of people being like, oh, well, the last one was $40. I could see that being like a thing where it's like, I don't know. It's definitely going to have to justify itself, I think, at that price, because most $70 games are probably a bit longer than this is going to be, I would imagine. Like, I don't imagine Ratchet and Clank games are particularly long, right? They're not like long in the tooth.
Yeah, like 15 to 20 hours probably, I would say. Like the big ones. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
Cracking Time and those. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it though. It looks really good.
Yeah, it looks awesome. We don't really know very much about it. I was surprised. I haven't like crawled everywhere, but I don't think they've even named that female Lombax yet, and which is kind of cool. And so actually, Billy Demon wrote into us about this because you called it a launch game, and it's worth noting Sony kind of called it that as well at some time. He says, "Hey, Last Stand fellas, is it just me, Or is Sony really stretching the definition of launch window with this Ratchet and Clank June 11th release date? Definitely. Not too much, though. Remember that they did Infamous Second Son was a launch window game. That came out, I think, in March of 2014, if I recall. So maybe even earlier than that. So yeah, they're not getting too crazy with it. I imagine that the game was probably supposed to be done a little earlier and COVID screwed it up.
Yeah.
Now, it's 5.5 weeks removed from Returnal. I think that's awesome. One thing I noted on Twitter that I think is an interesting point is that Insomniac will have been responsible for the first 2 PlayStation 5 first party games. So they went with Spider-Man, which is not exclusive. It's on PS4 as well, but then they're going with Ratchet as well, and so none of the other first parties have delivered yet. So I thought that was really interesting, just because that kind of takes them off the board for a while. I can't imagine they're going to be ready anytime soon with Spider-Man 2. I would imagine that that's a 2023 at the earliest, 2024 game. And so I thought that was kind of fascinating. And then the other thing, like you said, was the price tag. I don't know exactly how they're going to handle it, because Ratchet and Clank on PS4 in 2016 was a remake, and I don't know if that is why they charged $40 for it, but I think they were just kind of testing the waters. And I imagine they didn't think it was going to do that well. Ratchet and Clank, I haven't seen the recent numbers, but I would assume if you organize first and second party releases, that's a second party release at the time. If you organize them by sales data, Ratchet's probably in the top 10. Yeah. So I think $70 isn't that crazy. I was actually expecting that it was going to be $60, because I thought that they were going to play the similar kind of game where we're going to be a little cheaper with this one. But I think people are not going to regret the $70 price point. And Brian, my trophy hunting buddy that does PlayStation trophies, a popular YouTube channel, he predicted a 93 Metacritic score for this game, which I thought was incredibly bold. And I don't know that he's going to be that far off. I have a really good feeling about this game. And Insomniac's just so good. Marcus Smith's involved in it. Like I said, he is a great director. And yeah, so I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, it looks good. I'm excited. I think it's funny though about it, because it's like the way you were with Crash Bandicoot coming back was the way that I was with Ratchet coming back. I was like, do people really like, is Ratchet and Clank that important? And it's like, oh yeah, I guess it is, especially because
it was a reasonable ask. I mean, Ratchet really wasn't relevant for a while. So A Crack in Time is widely considered by a lot of people the best Ratchet game. That's 2009.
That's PS3.
But after that, they had a bunch of random Ratchet games, right? They had Into the Nexus, which was a mainline game, but that was like a very late PS3 game that came out way after PS3 was basically dead. And they did All for One, and they did that Deadlocked, and they had, they did one that was like a tower defense game and shit. Like, they were just kind of running Ratchet into the ground. And I think they realized that they just needed to leave it alone and make a Ratchet game. Yeah. As opposed to like all these other things. And so they did. And I think it's really great. And I also noted, man, Insomniac, $229 million. Just going to reiterate. They've already delivered 2 PS5 games, or they're going to deliver 2 PS5 games in the first 6 months of the console's launch. I would say that they got their money's worth, Sony. Yeah. And if I was Ted Price, I'd be pretty fucking pissed. But maybe not. I mean, Ted Price got probably $100 million out of that deal. So, all right. Here's another piece of big news, Chris. I'm interested to see what you think of this one. Number 2. HBO's much discussed rendition, of The Last of Us has both its Joel and Ellie, according to website Deadline. For starters, Joel is being played by Pedro Pascal, who has reached mainstream success in recent years, playing the main role on Disney Plus's The Mandalorian, and arguably the most popular Star Wars spinoff ever, at least with general audiences. He also played Javier Peña in Netflix's Narcos and Oberyn Martell in Game of Thrones. He's joined by fellow Game of Thrones alumnus Bella Ramsey, the 17-year-old who played the amazing Lyanna Mormont, one of the great characters on that show, in the HBO rendition. She also does the voice of Hilda in Netflix's Hilda, a popular animated series. The series, revealed last year with heavy involvement from the series creator, and I'm saying series a lot, creator and writer Neil Druckmann, is being co-led by Craig Mazin of Chernobyl fame and will follow the general plot of the original 2013 PlayStation 3 exclusive. Ryan McQueenie wrote in and said, "Good day, boys. Thoughts on the recent casting news from The Last of Us TV show? Pedro Pascal as Joel, I feel, can bring the right emotion to the role and is well trained in escort adventures. Colin, watch The Mandalorian." Stop. I'm not going to watch it until it's done. Furthermore, Bella Ramsey, most known for playing the young badass Lyanna Mormont in Game of Thrones, I didn't see coming, and I'm excited to see what she brings. Do either of these casting decisions excite you, or did I lose you at video game adaptation? Chris, what do you think about this casting? They announced both of them on the same day, which I thought was interesting just because you thought they might want to spread it out a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think it's good casting. I think ideally it's weird because this is almost like, this reminds me of like when we were talking about Resident Evil 4 where it's almost like if you're going to remake this game, you might as well, you either got to go to the point where it's the same game again or it's just completely its own thing. And I think the fact that these two actors look not really anything like the characters that they're portraying is probably a good thing. I feel like it'll help separate it a little bit and help it be like, okay, well, people like Pedro Pascal. Pedro's really good, and I could see him doing a pretty good Joel. I don't know about Bella Ramsey because I haven't seen Game of Thrones, but it seems fine. I'm just not particularly interested in this as a premise. Like I already played the game. I'm sure I'll check this thing out when it's out, but like nothing about the Last of Us TV show is going to excite me. Like it's just not. It's not in the books for me.
The casting, yeah, to me, so there was a rumor that was kind of concurrent to this news coming out that I was way more intrigued about, which was, and I always say his name wrong, but Mahershala Ali.
Oh, Mahershala
the black
Ali, yeah.
Yeah, he was rumored to be playing Joel, and I was like, it's interesting. Now, I got to be honest. I'm glad they didn't go down that road because I really think Naughty Dog would have been lambasted for that. Right or wrong, a black actor playing a character that was white is just going to give more fuel to what seems to be anti any sort of social commentary thing that Naughty Dog might do, right? We saw that with The Last of Us Part 2. So I'm not saying that it was right for them to shy away from it, but I think it was probably good for the product if that was what they were going to do. But they did end up going with an Hispanic guy. Joel's not Hispanic, so they're still kind of, being, forward thinking, I guess, in a lot of ways. But that was what I was thinking. I was like, I really like that guy. And I was like, oh, he would have been an interesting Joel. But I think that it would have just kind of, unfortunately, you kind of have to capitulate sometimes to the mob. And I feel like that would have been a bad look for them if they wanted to get people excited about this. Now, this other girl, she's 17 years old, but when she was in Game of Thrones, she was like, I think 11, 12, 13. She's fucking awesome because I'm not a huge Game of Thrones fan. I don't remember the kingdom, but she's in charge of one of these like vassal states, and she's the leader of them. Like she's the monarch, and she's like a little girl, and she's like totally badass. She wears like these furs, and she like wants to be on the front battle lines, and like she's really great. So when I saw that casting, I was like, awesome, because she's like a notoriously awesome character in Game of Thrones. So I was like, yeah, that's great. She doesn't look like Ashley Johnson, nor does Pedro Pascal look like Troy Baker. So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I think honestly, the further away you can get is probably the best way to go about it. It leads people to, because it'll be weird. It would be weird if they got people who looked like really, really similar, but like they just like their voices obviously weren't going to be the same, and they obviously weren't going to act in the same way. So it's just there's almost like an uncanny valley aspect to that, where it's like you want to get casting close, but not so close that it becomes bizarre. And I don't know. I think this is fine casting. I'll wait to see this when it's out though before I make any kind of value judgment on whether or not this is good.
Yeah, I don't know what their plan is. If they're planning on getting this out this year, but I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt.
So it'd probably be 2022 at that point. And that was my one concern about Bella Ramsey is she's a little old for Ellie, but Ashley Johnson played Ellie as an adult, so you can get away with it, I think.
Yeah.
It's the new year, and while we can all hold fast to our most ambitious resolutions, I'm looking at you, person who wanted to go hiking twice a week. It's easy enough to make 2021 the year of saving money. And a great way to do that is to check the creeping costs of your monthly wireless bill by switching to Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile is affordable. Plans start at a scant $15 per month. And since it's online only, it's able to pass its savings along to you. In fact, that's what impresses me most about Mint Mobile. Its easy-to-use website and its commitment to keeping prices down by removing itself entirely from brick and mortar. Who wants to go outside anyway? Not me. Mint Mobile's approach is genius, really. Anyway, all you do is go to mintmobile.com/sacred. That's mintmobile.com/SACRED. Put your zip code into their handy little module and find the plan that fits your needs. Whether it's just a little bit of data, a lot of data, or, well, unlimited data. And talk and text too, of course. I'm telling you, the website is easy to navigate and you'll find what you're looking for in moments. Mint Mobile uses the nation's largest 5G network too, so you'll be on the cutting edge. And you'll of course be able to keep your current phone and phone number when you make the switch. And hey, if you're not satisfied, just tell Mint Mobile within 7 days to get your money back. So to get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get that plan shipped to your door for free, head to mintmobile.com/sacred. That's mintmobile.com/sacred. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/sacred. All right, Chris, here was the third piece of big news. Any of these would have been number ones in a normal week. This is a really quite a week here.
This is a big one.
Number 3. And it's so nice, by the way, because we've had fucking dick all to talk about for most of the 2021 so far. Number 3, in a profoundly unexpected move, the highly controversial 2009 tactical shooter 6 Days in Fallujah has been revived. Word comes by way of a press release from developer Highwire Games, which notes that the game has been remade and is being revived with the help of Peter Tampt, who was the CEO of the game's original developer, Atomic Games. As you may recall, Atomic Games essentially finished 6 Days in Fallujah, which was set to be published by Konami, but the game was canceled very late in development due to controversy surrounding the game's subject matter. 6 Days in Fallujah is a reference to the Battle of Fallujah during the Iraq War, the battle taking place in 2004. There were actually multiple battles of Fallujah that year, but this one, which took place in November and December of that year, saw more American fatalities than in any other point before or during the or after in the Iraq War, and was the worst engagement undertaken by U.S. Marines in particular since the Vietnam War. The U.S. lost nearly 100 men with more than 500 wounded. However, the U.S. killed 1,500 enemy combatants, and the American Red Cross notes that another 800 civilians were killed. Thus, the controversy brewed, though it actually was largely undertaken by and for American Marines and soldiers back in 2009. As part of the remake, the game has gone from third person to first person and is only Highwire's second game, its first being the PSVR title Golem, which I think came out in 2017. There is an extensive FAQ and other stuff at 6days.com, and it will come to PlayStation by the end of 2021. They were not specific on PS4, PS5, or both. The FAQ is worth reading because they talk about why they're doing this. It is a very sensitive topic. Chris, what was your take on this coming back? I mean, this was out of nowhere. I never expected this to happen.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. Like, this was one of the things, like, I remember even back in the day, like, I was like a kid when this whole controversy was happening. I was in high school, but I remember even back when it was happening, I was like, man, that's so shitty that this game just like it exists and is just like it's just not being allowed to just actually be in the hands of people for some just to appeal to people's sensitivities. And I remember hating that like back in the day, and the idea that it's coming back and in any way is really cool. I appreciate games like this that are like just really like push a lot of buttons. That it's not even like it's trying to be offensive, you know. It's not like some edgelord game. It's just like it's a game about a subject that's, you know, pretty relevant, and sadly is still relevant because we're still in varying quantities and varying degrees. We're still over there doing all sorts of nonsense. But you know, I'm really interested to see where this goes. Like, a revival of canceled games like this rarely happens. And the fact that it happened to this one of all games is really exciting. And also, just side note, the composer to Bungie's ex-composer, Marty O'Donnell, the person who did all the music for Halo and Destiny and everything before that, and Golem, obviously, is going to be presumably doing a modern military theme or modern military soundtrack for the first time. So that's going to be really, really cool.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
I'm really interested.
My one disappointment here is that it's... Now, I don't expect them to release the original only, but it would be nice to get the original version, too.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's in the cards. I doubt it is. I would imagine Konami might own that, but they somehow extracted this. I mean, there's more to this story than they're letting on, because Konami owns that IP as far as I know. Atomic Games I don't think even exists anymore. I think they might have even gone out of business because of this. And so there's more I'm curious about from the business standpoint, but I really do hope the original, because it was originally a third-person tactical shooter. It seemed like they were trying to make it like SOCOM or something like that. It seems now like it's going to be a first-person military shooter. They're still calling it a tactical shooter, but I don't know if that's really going to be the case.
It might be like Siege or something like that.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. And it's worth noting that the controversy around this comes from a lot of mixed intel and information about maybe some American war crimes there, and all of that. And I think people are really interested in how they deal with it. I mean, the one thing that this Highwire Games team is playing up, Chris, is that and this was the same back in the day too, but I guess they're playing it up even more now, is that this isn't the Marines and the soldiers that were there are involved, like not all of them, but they have people involved in making this game and guiding its narrative and the realism. And I want to see how far that goes as well. And it would be really interesting to see. This is the kind of shit I always say, like, can we play as the Iraqis? You know, in this? Well, I don't want to say the Iraqis. I want to say the enemy. We had Iraqis on our side too. But can we play as the enemy? That would be, can we shoot American soldiers? You know?
Yeah. Why
wouldn't you be allowed to do that? Because that's when it gets a little dicey, because it's like, all right, we're gonna kill the enemy. There's gonna be people, Iraqis dead. So this is I think this is kind of the point of why people want to see how far this game goes, and I'm curious about that too. And I will say this: I'm a big supporter of the American military. We all know that. I'm inherently conservative. My dad was in the Air Force, all that, but I feel like kowtowing at all times to the American military and to American military personnel, no matter what they say, is exactly why the game got canceled originally. And I'm glad to see that people are doing the heavy lifting to make it right on that side too, because in America, as I think a lot of people outside of America know, and certainly inside of it know, we are very much not allowed to talk shit about anything to do with the military. It's just not something that ever happens. And for good reason. But when people, you would think it was kind of like the nanny state people that canceled this game, but it wasn't.
Yeah, no, it was,
and that's worth noting.
It was like Fox. So. It was like Fox News. And
right, exactly.
Like that. It was very, very bizarre. Very bizarre.
Now, we got an interesting question here from Joey Guntoliker, who wrote in and said, hey, boys, with the news that 6 Days in Fallujah is back in active development after being canceled nearly 12 years ago and nearly 18 years after the actual battle on which the game is based, I have to wonder if there is precedent for how much time has to pass for a video game to be made on actual events. You saw so many movies being made about events that happened only a few years prior, like American Sniper, Zero Dark 30, The Hurt Locker. But the fact that when video games do it, it's controversial is interesting. Does this have any impact on the idea that video games could be art in the same vein as film and music? Or is it just the result of a bad stroke of controversy? Nevertheless, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this matter. Chris, I think the thing here about when it was canceled is really important, because I think people still didn't really understand video games in 2009. I still don't know that they really understand them now.
Yeah,
I think back then being like, wait, you're going to play as an American soldier, he's going to get killed. It's very much, it's like Spec Ops: The Line if Spec Ops: The Line got any marketing,
Yeah.
So what do you think what do you feel like the line is? Because I feel like 6 Days in Fallujah, the only thing going against it now is I think it would have been more impactful than it's going to be now.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I think the line is however long it takes you to make it. Quite honestly, you're not going to get a good game out in like 2 days after an event like this happens. Like it's obviously going to take you years to develop something like this. And I think 2 to 3 years. Like I really don't see a problem with just tackling shit. I don't see a problem with tackling shit that's currently happening. Like I believe in the absolute freedom of expression in that regard, and I think some people are bound to be offended by this even still, and I'm sure that there are all sorts of things that I ideally wouldn't be made into like some gamified thing. But I mean, that's our industry, and that's just what we do, and that's just kind of that is where I would argue the uniqueness of the artistic intent of this medium shines where others don't. Like the Hurt Locker is this very scripted thing. It's like obviously it's a movie, so players aren't participating in it. But the fact that you are participating in something that is technically historical, that's really cool. And that's something that is uniquely video games. And that is something that, like, just because it's not as passive as a movie doesn't mean it's, like, less artistically important. And it doesn't mean that it's, like, more offensive. Like, that's the thing that confuses me. It's like, participating in fiction and watching fiction are, like, for some reason viewed as, like, morally completely different, even though it's all fiction. That is the weird thing to me.
Sure.
I don't get it.
It is strange. I mean, you're right in the sense that we have such an advantage in games to not only tell the story, but to make it more immersive and I think stick with people more. And I often wonder, Chris, about how many people, and I'm not trying to be dramatic or overstate the point, but how many people know anything about World War II because of Medal of Honor, or anything about the Cold War because, not that it's like they're telling the real Cold War story in Call of Duty or something. Call of Duty started as a World War II shooter. I mean, it's I'm not saying that you go to games to learn, but I'm saying that you can.
I learned a lot about about World War II from like World War II shooters, you know, just like because they got me interested in reading about it. You know, it's just like, oh, this is a cool battle, and this was like an interesting set piece. I wonder like what the hell this is, and you look it up, and it's like, oh, this is interesting that this is how this took place, and like I learned a lot from Medal of Honor too. Like these games have more applicable uses than just like, oh, this is fun. You know, that is ultimately like, I guess, the goal of a video game, and even some people would disagree. Like a lot of people, there's a lot of games now that just aren't fun by design, that are kind of meant to make you feel kind of uncomfortable. Like I would argue, like Papers, Please is not like a fun game, right? You know, but it's a game.
Good example.
And it's a game that a lot of people really appreciate, and I don't see why we can't have things like that.
Absolutely, very well said. Papers, Please came to Vita, which is surprising. It eventually came. So yeah, we'll track this. The one thing I don't want is American propaganda, and as long as they can stay away from that, I don't know. It's been a while since I've studied this. This was happening when I was in college. I was in classes with people from Iraq that were like running, you know, that were refugees, and it was a heavy thing at that time. And I remember that, but I just don't want American propagandistic impressions of this. I also don't want an overstatement of the controversy. I want fact. I want to know what it was like for these guys. I want to hear from them. It would be great to hear, not from the enemy, but from Iraqis that fought on our side too. It would be cool to hear from them. I'm hoping that we do. And yeah, I'm really excited. So by the end of 2021, hopefully on PS5, but certainly on PS4.
Yeah. I personally believe this is going to be on both.
I think they have enough time to make that happen.
Yeah.
Number 4. This was the number 1 story before this morning when I wrote all the other. Grand Theft Auto 5 continues to be a sales phenomenon for publisher Take-Two Interactive and its prize developer Rockstar. In a recent investor call as relayed by website IGN, the company confirmed that GTA 5 has now sold a staggering 140 million copies since it launched in late 2013. In its launch year, GTA 5 sold 32.5 million copies across Xbox 360 and PS3 in only 3 months. That's still its best year ever. However, the game's second best year in volume sold was 2020. A shocking revelation that underscores the value of this particular game to its publisher and developer, especially in the form of its spin-off GTA Online, which can now be played independently of GTA 5, but which couldn't be for many years. At 140 million sold, GTA 5 is the second best-selling game ever made, and has sold 3 times more copies than Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow combined. You can still play it on PS3, but in 2014, the game also came to PS4, and a PS5 version is still incoming at an undetermined point in the future, probably this year.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
That is crazy. What? Like, that's my thought. What? Like, was there any marketing for this game this year at all? I
don't think so. I see some stuff during football for the GTA Online DLC, but it doesn't even explicitly, I think, talk about GTA 5, and you don't need to have GTA 5 to play anymore, I don't think. So I just can't believe, I could believe the numbers, but it's incredible. Minecraft is the only game that has sold more. And it sold substantially more, like 60 million more.
Yeah.
But this, it's pretty incredible. I mean, this thing is just minting money. We're going to talk a little bit later because they talked about some of their other sales figures, and they're impressive, but Jesus fuck. 140 million copies. I'm not saying they were all sold at $60. They weren't. Imagine if the mean, though, was $20 even, right? Like, that's still an extraordinary amount of billions of dollars. And the game is basically just minting money. They might even have like hundreds of people working on it and could still mint money on it. But we do have an inquiry here from Aaron Davidson I want to pick your brain about, Chris. He says, "Hey, CNC, I hope you're all doing well. Push Square reported this week that GTA 5 has surpassed 140 million sales, with over 10 million coming in 2020, making it the best-selling year since its launch. As relayed by Forbes, this pushed GTA 5 up there with the likes of Minecraft at 200 million, Tetris at 100 million. It's worth noting that that's just EA's Tetris. It's not all Tetris. Tetris would otherwise be the best-selling game of all time.
Yeah, probably.
And Wii Sports, 83 million, which shipped with every Wii console. With PS5 support for GTA 5 coming in the near future, what does this mean for GTA 6? With Rockstar having no real reason to stop milking the cash cow, what are the chances we do not see this game until the mid-2020s? I'm still of the mind you may not ever see this game. Although it seems that they are making it, from what we understand from some compelling rumors. But what do you think this means, Chris? Because we're talking about a game now in 2 years will have been out for 10 years. So it's getting long in the tooth. I mean, this game came out before PS4 came out, to put it in context. what do you think about GTA 6 and the prospects of us getting that and when we might?
I don't know. I feel like I don't know what their reason would be or what their incentive would be. Like we know that Rockstar lost pretty key talent as far as like the writing team for Grand Theft Auto. Like I think that happened last year. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, after Red Dead 2 came out, they lost some people.
Yeah, so like even if you did get a new GTA, like I wonder if it would even be GTA really. Do they have like a team that kind of like studied under these people that can like carry a new title, and like what would that new title even be? Like what would be the purpose of segmenting and like charging people for a new thing that arguably like I mean obviously the multiplayer is where the money is, where all the the microtransactions and all these like shark cards or whatever the hell they're selling. That's definitely making the bulk of their money, but the fact that like the game itself sold like 140 million is wild in and of itself. And I don't know if they have much of a reason to slow that down. Maybe they could use this new GTA 6 as like maybe like a boon for an already overselling game. But I would anticipate 2024 at like the earliest. Like I don't think this thing is coming anytime soon. I think we're more likely to get a bully than we are to get like
you're really trying.
I do think that though. Like I think they're more likely to be like, hey, we got all this money. Why not just make something simple that doesn't have like the expectations that Grand Theft Auto has, but can also be like exciting for a lot of people? Because Bully's not like this beloved, or not necessarily not beloved, but like Bully isn't this like high tier, like high production value. It's not Red Dead 2, like this isn't like a game that anybody's expecting Red Dead 2 from. I don't want to play a game about like a really sympathetic tortured bully, like nobody wants that out of Bully. So I feel like it's an easy game for them to make. It's an easy game for them to make money on, and it's an easy, probably potentially a really easy game to monetize. Definitely an easy game to market because it's going to market itself. I think they're more comfortable probably doing that than they are dipping their toes into Grand Theft Auto again, while Grand Theft Auto is already doing well and doesn't need that shot in the arm that a GTA 6 would inevitably provide. And I think mid 2020s is probably when you're going to see it, if you're going to see it at all. Especially, and not even, that's disregarding just how COVID is screwed with everything. Obviously that's probably going to delay it even further. Like I would have maybe anticipated like maybe 2023 or something. Maybe, but I do think it's mid 2020s that we're looking at for this, if it exists.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Could be wrong.
What I expect. I have a fantasy of what I would want them to do, right? But first of all, Bully would be funny because Rockstar is the only brand that can get away with it.
Yeah,
doing it. In this day and age, and even then, I don't know if they really could get away with it.
I think they could absolutely. You mentioned
I would love for them to do it as long as they really stuck to their guns, But the thing with Grand Theft Auto 6, my fantasy for it is just, wouldn't it be cool if they did a single player only GTA game? Like just something that's like, listen, GTA Online exists. We uncoupled it from GTA 5. It exists. Here's a real Grand Theft Auto game. There's no online component. And we'll support it with single player DLC, and GTA Online can continue to mint money, and we'll connect them in some way, and you maybe use the same portal to get to them. But I would love for that to happen. I just know that that's just not going to happen. And there's no way. It almost would be stupid to do that when you know that you could make more money doing it the other way. So I don't know. I would love to see GTA 6. It's been a long time. We've ad nauseum on the show talked about just even the lack of DLC support for single player on GTA 5 leaves us wanting. And so a new approach would be good for them, I think. Chris, this next one's for you though. Number 5. Ooh. Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, first released on PS4 back in October of 2020, is getting a native PlayStation 5 release. Word comes by way of a post on the official PlayStation blog, which notes that the PS5 iteration of Crash 4 will launch on March 12th. Naturally, the PS5 version comes with enhancements, including 4K resolution at 60 frames per second, 3D audio, and DualSense support, and worry not. If you had it on PS4, you can upgrade to PS5 free of charge. Crash 4, made by Activision-owned studio Toys for Bob, was a critical darling and a modest commercial success for a publisher so large. It follows the events of Crash Bandicoot Warped, which came to PS1 way back in 1998, and was the studio's first new Crash game. having largely been associated with licensed games in the Skylander series since its earliest days as the developer of the beloved PC game Star Control and Star Control 2, which came out in 1990 and 1992. So Crash 4 on PlayStation 5. We don't want to get too excited with Crash 5 yet. You going to go back?
Yeah, I mean, I still haven't finished it just because I got pulled. It's also just hard. It's a hard game, and I remember being like, I'm feeling mighty abused right now. I'm gonna put this down, gonna just take a deep breath, and then like something else came out, and I was like, oh, I gotta finish. I gotta jump into this. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to. I will say though, like I downloaded Crash 4 on my PS5, and I was playing it. And I didn't even really notice that it wasn't running at 60. Like, it's a really smooth. Like, I guess it is 30 still, and I just didn't really notice because it feels like really like the animation is. Well,
could it be 60 at 1080? And they're saying it's going to be 60 at 4K.
No, because I think they're right that it's not 60, but like it just feels so smooth that like I know it. I think it really is just like a testament to the animation team and how well they made this game because it just feels really smooth. But I know it's not 60 on PS5, but it doesn't feel as sluggish as a lot of other games tended to at 30 on PS4. But no, this is exciting. Anytime a game like this gets like a boost to performance, it just makes the game better. Like there's no game that's made worse by better performance. So like I'm all about it. This is exciting.
Yeah,
and I appreciate that it's free also.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing. I was actually digging through the PlayStation blog post because that was kind of buried at the end, and I'm like, oh, no. You know, are you really going to make people buy this again? But no, they couldn't get away with that. And thus, if you own it already, you can upgrade for free. So that's March 12th. And then here's some news, too. Number 6, we talked about this a little bit, but we have confirmation. There's some Borderlands news to report. For starters, and as we discussed some weeks ago, Tales from the Borderlands is indeed being republished on PlayStation Store. As you may recall, the episodic games fell victim to the demise of developer Telltale Games in 2018, and they were originally released over 5 episodes stretching from 2014 through 2015 on both PS3 and PS4. While the new Gearbox published iterations will bundle all 5 episodes together into one package beginning February 17th, however, it will only be available on PS4. The PS3 iterations will not be republished. The other piece of Borderlands-related news has to do with the director's cut. Borderlands 3's, I don't like that. Second piece of DLC in the game's second overall season pass. All of the new director's cut related content will be added to the game beginning on March 18th. So Borderlands 3 marches on. Excellent game. Loved it. Love playing that game. And then some more sales data, Chris, for us to crawl through. Number 7, Sony has revealed the best-selling games on PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, and PSVR sold digitally via the PlayStation Store in the month of January 2020. For starters, the top 20 best-selling PS5 games were in order. So this is almost every PS5 game.
Yeah.
Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, Hitman 3, Miles Morales, Madden NFL 21, NBA 2K21, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, FIFA 21, Demon's Souls, Mortal Kombat 11, Rainbow Six Siege, Sackboy: A Big Adventure, Immortals: Phoenix Rising, Godfall, No Man's Sky, Watch Dogs Legion, Dead by Daylight, Borderlands 3, Devil May Cry 5, Dirt 5, and Temtem. That's basically every game on the console.
Yeah, basically.
On PS4, the 20 best-selling games were in order. Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, Grand Theft Auto 5, Minecraft, The Forest, still up there. I have no idea what's going on with that game. Red Dead Redemption 2, Madden NFL 21, Ark Survival Evolved. So that game got a big bump after the Vin Diesel connection. NBA 2K21, Gang Beasts, Miles Morales, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, Mortal Kombat 11, Naruto Shippuden, Ultimate Ninja Storm 4, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Ghost of Tsushima, Naruto to Boruto, Shinobi Striker, Hitman 3, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Jump Force, and UFC 4. PSVR's top 10 best-selling games were in order, the same as always: Beat Saber, Job Simulator, Superhot VR, Vader Immortal, The Walking Dead, Sinners and Saints, Gorn, The Walking Dead Onslaught, Creed Rise to Glory, Arizona Sunshine, and Gun Club VR, Rocket League, Call of Duty Warzone, and Fortnite were both consoles combined most popular free-to-play games. So nothing too surprising there.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then some more sales data, Chris. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
I'm just happy to see Hitman doing well.
Yeah, seems like it's doing very well. Number 8, there's some other sales data to pour through too, now that all of the publishers are talking about their recent financials. So we promise more about publisher Take-Two. They said, according to website IGN, that 2018's Red Dead Redemption 2 has surpassed 36 million copies sold. NBA 2K21 has surpassed 8 million copies sold, and the aforementioned Borderlands 3, released in 2019, is at 12 million copies sold. Push Square reports that its PGA Tour 2K21 game has sold 2 million units as well in its first year on the market. Obviously, they were trying to do the same thing with the racing games as well, which they were not able to acquire because EA got them instead. So those are big sales for them for the golf game. And then Take-Two has likewise reiterated that it has nearly 100 games in development right now, including 63 so-called core games. In its financial call, as seen as a transcript on website Motley Fool, publisher Activision revealed that Call of Duty in various forms was played by more than 250 million people in 2020, with 400 million players across all of their games. Website Gematsu reports that the Bandai Namco published and Tarsier developed 2017 horror game Little Nightmares, which is being followed by a sequel imminently, has surpassed 3 million copies sold. Ubisoft's financials also have interesting tidbits considering the publisher reported its strongest quarter of sales in its history. It's tiring to always talk about Assassin's Creed, though, so let's instead note that Just Dance's back catalog has seen a 200% surge in sales over the last year, while Rainbow Six Siege, launched in late 2015, now has 70 million registered players. So Just Dance, quarantine delight, it seems like.
I would imagine just people trying to like keep their muscles from atrophying.
Yeah, and their kids busy.
Yeah,
you know?
no, exactly.
Oh, yeah,
it's totally.
Get the fuck out of here.
see that.
Can you imagine how much you want to kill yourself right now if you have kids?
Oh my God.
I mean, I can't even imagine.
No. I think, oh my God. Wait. I forgot to put my Discord on Do Not Disturb. I just got like inundated with like.
Oh, your noises?
Yeah, just really loud.
At IGN, we used to have these. We used to go to a VO booth to do our to do VO, obviously. And you would, if you kept everyone knew to keep their headphones off because they would put it on. It would be this pop noise that would make your ears bleed, and I'm always horrified of that happening to me again. All right, here. Oh, you got a question about this one from Shawnee Mac on Patreon. He wrote in and said, "What's up, boys? A recent announcement has come out of Ubisoft stating how they're looking to shift focus away from AAA games going forward and will pivot to free-to-play and microtransactions as the base of their business." That's a little inaccurate. I mean, you kind of got it in the second half of that sentence. They're not going to stop making AAA games. They're just going to make fewer of them. Given their recent history of underperforming and broken live service games like The Division 2 and Breakpoint, do you think this model is sustainable? Can you see a consumer exodus from the gaming space if big publishers forego quality AAA games for the quick buck? Perhaps this will allow mid-sized publishers like Focus Home to elevate themselves. What do you say? No, I'm not. I don't know that he's Sean. I don't know that you're accurately representing what Ubisoft is really saying. I don't know that you're not intentionally doing that. But what they're saying is that they'd rather sell Assassin's Creed once every 2 or 3 years, way more copies of it, and then support it with robust DLC in the back end. This is not really that different from what they already do. They're just saying that they're going to do it even more. So a lot of people were making a big deal about this, Chris, but I was like, this sounds like a much more friendly Ubisoft to me.
Yeah.
What is the problem with what they're saying? What do you think about potentially focusing away from getting their focus away from annualization, which they've already done by and large?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good thing. I think people are like filling in the blanks a lot. I think the idea it's like, oh hey, free to play and microtransactions and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, that's shitty, but I don't know if that's what they said necessarily. I'm sure they'll still do it. But, didn't Ubisoft just come out with, oh my God, what was it? The Gods and Monsters game that got...
Oh, Phoenix Immortals Rising.
Yeah, that... I was playing that not too long ago, and it didn't strike me as a game that... Maybe that's a monetized game. Maybe there are loot boxes, and maybe there are microtransactions in it, but I didn't see any. And I think that's probably that's a good thing. I think, the fact that they're just like, hey, you know what, let's make something like Immortals, and hey, let's make we'll rely on our Far Cry when we need it, but like I think ultimately like what they're doing is a good thing here. Yeah,
I think that people are just nervous because they said they're going to make more free-to-play games, but I think that that's logical. They're also making a game with Tencent for mobile platforms, which is a huge get for them, but especially with the reach of Tencent, but I'm not particularly concerned about Ubisoft. I think that there are way bigger problems with other publishers. I think Ubisoft, if anything, seems to be the healthiest business-wise. I'm not saying money-wise. I'm saying in terms of the way they conduct their business. I feel like Ubisoft has very little to worry about, and except for all of the sexual impropriety shit.
Except for all that.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying money.
From an output perspective, I think Ubisoft is doing the. I mean, maybe Activision's doing a little better, but like they're Activision is its own kind of can of worms. But Ubisoft, the fact that they were willing to put out something like Immortals. Knowing that it was, because Immortals is not like it is a game that like looks a lot like other Ubisoft games in the way that it's like, oh, it's open world and it's like map based, but it really isn't. Like it really feels like its own thing, and the fact that they just let that happen and let it exist the way that it wants to is really cool. And I'm still, I'm still enraged to my core on how they're treating Splinter Cell, but with that aside, Far Cry 5 looks fucking great, and like
6.
Oh, 6. Right, that's right. I'm losing count. Because I didn't play Far Cry 5 much. That was the Oregon
Far Cry 5
one, right?
was awesome. I loved 5.
That was
that was the one with David Koresh in it.
Yeah, with not Jared Leto.
So, so there's some. I could have sworn. So I was a little confused about Far Cry 6 because I was like, didn't they put a release date on this? But then I was looking and they didn't. So
No.
I'm a little confused about what's going on with that game. I'm amped up about. I love Far Cry, so I'm totally amped. I'll be all over that fucking thing when it comes out. But I feel like, and by the way, I think I called Immortals Phoenix Immortals Rising before, which is like something my mom would say. So that's not the name of the game. It's Immortals Phoenix Rising.
It's a dumb name.
That's what it's called. It's a horrible name. Gods and Monsters was better, but obviously there's probably 17,000 trademarks with that, so I'm sure they didn't want to go through the trouble.
I will say though, like I haven't mentioned it since I brought it up that one episode, but I played a little bit more of it. It's not a bad game at all. It's pretty good.
I couldn't get past the opening.
The opening is obnoxious.
I immediately shut it off.
It was grating, yeah. But if you can get through the intro, which is not super long, it's actually like a pretty competent open world romp.
Cool. Yeah, it looks great. I bought it, so I might as well play it at some point.
Yeah, at some point.
All right, number 9. There are a few games-related pieces of movie news to get through. I know we always love this.
God.
For starters, website Deadline is reporting that the upcoming Resident Evil movie, called Resident Evil, now has a release date, September 3rd, 2021, which is Labor Day weekend. I think they're getting a little ambitious there, but we'll see. The movie was revealed only back in October of 2020 and was written and directed by Johannes Roberts, the British filmmaker perhaps best known for the clever shark-centric horror movie 47 Meters Down, which came to theaters in 2017. The trailer, I never saw 47 Meters Down, but the trailer is dope for that game, for that movie. About like, it's just, I think it just all takes place like in the open ocean with like a shark like going after these people. And I remember the trailer being quite compelling. I think I might have seen it when I saw that movie Arrival in the theater, which was also really good. I like that movie a lot. Always love my alien movies. All right, let's see. A list of mostly smaller unknown actors makes up the cast, playing characters such as Claire and Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Leon Kennedy, and Albert Wesker. The next piece of news has to do with the upcoming Eli Roth-directed Borderlands movie that already has Cate Blanchett and Kevin Hart attached to it. Jamie Lee Curtis has also signed on to the movie. Curtis is playing the archaeologist Tanis, which is perhaps the biggest name yet affixed to this surprising film. She, of course, got her start in Hollywood in 1978's classic horror movie Halloween, which is still best known for, and she is still best known for her many Halloween-related roles as the character Laurie Strode. And finally, the sequel to 2020's surprising critical and commercial hit Sonic the Hedgehog movie has a name. It's quite simply called Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and it comes to theaters in 2022.
Good.
Nothing crazy there, but Jamie Lee Curtis, what are they doing with this Borderlands movie? This is so weird.
I don't see any of this. Like, I don't see any of this casting at all.
It's got to be meta, right? Like, do you think that they're doing it to be like, because Borderlands is so weird that they're casting weird people?
Maybe like that. I could see that working. I suppose. Like, I don't know what this movie could possibly be. It's got to be a comedy, right? Because there's no way you could be like.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There's no way.
Borderlands is a comedy, right?
Yeah, but like there's. I don't know. This makes me feel like I was just born. Every time I read like new information about this movie, I feel like I'm thrown off to the point where like I don't even know how to interpret any of it. Like Jamie Lee Curtis is Tanis. I'm trying to even remember who Tanis was. She was like the one with the goggles, right? The archaeologist who like sends.
Yeah, she's like I think you talk to her mostly like over your radio. But
yeah,
I don't remember. I don't play these games for the story.
No, exactly.
I play them because they're fucking fun. And yeah, I guess that goes to show why we don't need a Borderlands movie. But they're going to make their money. And hey, this is now an Embracer Group THQ project, I would assume. Right. So we're going to hear more about them as well.
I don't know, man. They always choose the weirdest things to make movies out of. It's always like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, and it's like all these games that you don't play for the story. You know, it's just weird.
It's very weird. Number 10's a wrap up. Website Gamatsu reports Puzzler Maquette comes to PS4 on March 2nd. Horror game Sanity of Morris is coming to PS4 on March 23rd. Multiplayer Shootist Solaris Off-World Combat is coming to PlayStation VR at some point this spring. Oh, multiplayer shooter Solaris. I'm sorry. Did I say that?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Simulator Base 1 is coming to PS4 and PS5 in the second quarter. Ridiculous Warhammer-themed turn-based strategy game Blood Bowl 3 is coming to PS4 and PS5 in August. Action-adventure game Connect Tank is coming to PS4 this fall. And horror title In Nightmare, which is one of the China-developed projects PlayStation was highlighting, will indeed be coming to Western PS4s at an unknown point in the future. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Website Push Square reports regrettably delayed Halloween-themed game Pumpkin Jack is coming to PS4 on February 24th. So that game came out on all the other platforms. You'd think that on Halloween, you'd think that they would have just held it.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would release that game now. Puzzle game Doodle Devil Evolution, which is the third Doodle Devil game, is coming to PS4 and PS5 on March 11th. Casual skating game Skate City is coming to PS4 and PS5 apparently imminently. And turn-based RPG Disciples Liberation is coming to PS4 and PS5 by year's end. The website also reports that RPG King of Seas for PS4 has been delayed until May later this year, while popular free-to-play RPG, I forgot to put the name of it in here, but it's Genshin Impact, has been rated for release on PS5 in Taiwan, meaning a native version is undoubtedly incoming. The open beta for upcoming Arc System Works developed fighting game Guilty Gear Strive, which comes out in April on both PS4 and PS5, will begin on February 18th. Website Video Games Chronicle reports that the Outer Worlds' second expansion, Murder on Idanos, will launch at some point in March. The Outer Worlds first came to PS4 in 2019. Publisher Ubisoft revealed that its Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake has been delayed indefinitely, requesting more time to make the game better. And finally, Square Enix has revealed that Final Fantasy XIV's new expansion called Endwalker will be coming to both PS4 and PS5 this fall, alongside a native PlayStation 5 release for the core game and all its expansions. So that's all the news.
Well,
a lot of it.
That's a lot.
Week. It's quite the bonanza. But Chris, as we always end our episodes of Sacred Symbols, the PlayStation podcast, with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience. You can submit them on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia. Let's start with Liam Kennedy. He says, hey, CM Squared, do you think there is any chance that PlayStation goes to a free online services model? I think the biggest factor of cost in PS Plus would have to come from paying devs money to add their games to PS Plus for the month. Most of the time, I don't get around to playing the free games for PS Plus for the month, and all the biggest online games are currently free to play, like Apex Legends, Fortnite, Warzone. I understand it's an added revenue source, but it seems silly to lock certain games' multiplayer components, like multiplayer with Warzone, out when I would assume the majority of online gamers are playing free-to-play games, which do not require the paid online subscription. My suggestion would be to have a free tier with more limited party services, and he says like limiting the number of players in a party with a paid subscriber host and free online. The paid tier gets you the free games each month, more expanded party features, and could possibly be bundled in with PS Now for a more premium price, or the ability to be able to still play the free games without the PS Plus subscription. I wanted to read this letter because the letter itself says why this can't happen. Yeah. It's because it's too fucking confusing, what you're saying, right? Like, what do you think, Chris?
Yeah, no, this has no chance in happening. But like, I wouldn't say that it's because it's confusing. I would say that because Sony doesn't act this way. And Sony does not act consumer friendly unless they're kind of backed into a corner, and they're just not backed into a corner right now. There's no reason for them to charge less for PlayStation Plus. There's no reason for them to make PS Plus free. There's no reason to add like a free tier to PS Plus. There already is a free tier to PS Plus. It's called having a PlayStation. Wow,
you sound like Bobby Kotick with or not Bobby Kotick.
Don Matrick.
Don Matrick with the
it is
Xbox
though
360.
like that is ultimately like I would prefer a reality where we didn't have these subscriptions, because I think it's kind of stupid that like PC just gets to play for free and PC is just doing just fine. I guess you could argue there's like there's more robust cheaters on PC, which I guess is like a fair criticism, but like I just don't see them acting in any kind of I don't see them giving a handout to the broader player base like this for no reason. Like they would have to be backed into a corner by like a really like out of nowhere successful Microsoft or something for them to even make and even Microsoft, like who are like arguably the underdogs in this fight here. They recently had a whole thing where they upped the price to Xbox Live and then got bullied out of it. So like
and then went even further back, right? Like rewound the clock even further and then took the gold restrictions away from free-to-play games, which was a thing.
Which
you know what I mean? So they paid the price for doing that.
Yeah, which by the way should have never been a thing. Like if a game is free to play, it should be free to play. But yeah, so like if Microsoft is bullish enough to charge more for their service, and they're like the underdogs here, why would Sony ever Like, why would Sony charge less or make something free if they didn't have to?
I think you're absolutely right. The big thing, we have to kind of deconstruct this a little bit because I'm sure Liam remembers, but you were able to play online for free until PS4.
Yeah.
PS3 had no, and that was a big difference between PSN and Xbox Live back in the day. Mm-hmm. And people used to justify, as you'll remember, Chris, that it was worth paying to clean things up a little bit, which is what you were talking about with the PC audience and making things more stable. So when they made the PS Plus requirement for online play, it made PS Plus a really important part of Sony's PlayStation ecosystem. And he hit it, Chris. He said, I understand it's an added revenue source. He almost just bulldozes over that. Dude, that's a massive revenue source. It's a passive revenue source too. Think about all of us that have PlayStation Plus subscriptions. We just let them renew. I mean, it was tens of millions of us. And it's free money. Yeah. So no, it's not totally free. They do have to pay licensing fees, like you said, for the free games, and there's upkeep. I mean, it's not like these things just keep, but they're making a lot of money. They're not going to just shut this thing down or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I think that we've talked a lot, Chris, about fusing PS Plus and PS Now and all of that, and that's possible, but I just don't like the idea of tiering things because I think it becomes more confusing for the consumer, and then they're going to go to the lowest common denominator. So that might be good for us, but it might be bad for PlayStation Network, the infrastructure. I don't really give a shit about Sony's books, but just keeping things kind of robust. I think this is the new expectation, right, in gaming. We're a long ways away from PS3 now. And so I like where your head's at, Liam, but I think simplicity is key in trying to market this different stuff. Because wasn't there like Xbox Live Silver, but that was basically just like Xbox, like it was just like making a name.
That was
right,
that was just basically like you were connected to the internet and you had you could download
like achievements and stuff.
You could download games. Well, I guess back in the day you couldn't because there was Xbox.
No, you
Live
could.
Arcade.
2005 starting, right?
Yeah, there was like arcade games that you could download. I'm thinking like download proper titles. That wasn't until 2009 or 2010 or something like that. But there was like a silver membership that was pretty much nothing. Like you could. I don't even think you could join parties if you had silver. I think I might be misremembering that. I'm
so
sure
that's the point, right? Like it's like just either have you don't have it, or you have you have what everyone has.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Then you build from there. I think. Yeah. I do like the idea of fusing PS Now and PS Plus, but I don't think it's going to happen because I think there's going to be sticker shock when they do it.
Yeah, probably. They could just forego the name and just have cloud streaming as a benefit to PS Plus, though. Like, I don't think PS Now as a brand, I think Xbox Live Gold has its own like kind of like value in its own thing, but like PS Now, like you could fold that into PS Plus, and I don't think it would make that much of a difference. I don't think people would be like,
Game Pass has much more resonance.
Yeah.
Than PS Now.
The Game Pass has more resonance than the Xbox Live Gold. So
sure. Matthew Bush wrote in, son of George W. Bush, says, "Hello, C Dogs and D Dog." He's not here today. I played and finished The Order 1886 last weekend. I really enjoyed the game with exceptions to some of the combat and length of the story lack thereof. We've talked about that a bunch. But I cannot help but imagine if I took a Dead Space approach and created a survival horror game set in a Victorian hospital or underground or parliament, etc. What game last generation did you enjoy but felt like a different approach to its gameplay would make it better for you? If so, what game and which direction would you take it? This is a really great question because I don't really know that The Order... I don't know. Why do we like talking about this game so much? Let me just start there. Like, what is it about this game that we just keep coming back to it?
Because it's weird. It's like, it's this game that was like, it was showcased as like almost like, I remember it being, maybe I'm misremembering this, but I remember The Order being like, kind of like flagship for the PS4. Like, I remember that being like a big deal for PlayStation 4.
It was.
Like, in like,
that opening trailer at E3 that year, 2014, I think it was. When they all got out of the carriage, right? And they started shooting all the apparitions. It was dope as shit.
Yeah. And then, and then it came out and it was like 3 hours long and like nobody cared about it. Or like, and it was just, and it was like just never mentioned again. Like ever. Like not even like, I don't even think it was ever like a PS Plus game. Like I
don't think it is either. I think that's a good point.
I can't remember. Like I'm sure it maybe was at some point, but like I can't remember. And it's like it's just the fact that this game just existed in such high regard early on and then immediately just like that would be like if Gears of War on Xbox's side was like announced and then it came out and then you never heard from it again. Because it was essentially like this is a third person like shooter, like gritty,
cover based.
Cover based.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just weird.
Now, to his point, I don't want to belabor last generation too much. I just feel like games, generally speaking, that do what the Order 1886 did from a visual point of view and from a story world building point of view, really, really exceptional. Maybe that's why we talk about it so much. And it reminds me a lot of the way I feel about Final Fantasy VI, ironically, where it was like a really cool fusion of old and new technology and antiquated things. And it's certainly the greatest example I can think of in the first or second party of totally squandered potential. But I don't know. I think people need to start letting go of this one. I think part of the reason why it's never been free too is because I don't think they want to trick people into thinking it's going to continue. And I think some people hope it will because of the ending of the game. So but I feel like we got to let go of the Order 1886. Let's just let it go.
It's funny though, because this is one of those games that like nobody really, like, people, it just didn't do well, but I could see, like, I wouldn't be surprised if like in a few years you see like the Order, you know, like and people were like, oh my God. It's the same thing with people like when Phantom Dust on Microsoft Store. It's like, oh my God. It's like, you didn't play Phantom Dust.
Yeah, no one played Phantom Dust.
I didn't play Phantom Dust. I knew about it because I saw, like, I think I had like an Xbox magazine or something that showed me like a screenshot of it.
Yeah, but, like, people, it was a card game, right?
Huh?
It was a card game, right?
I don't remember. Like, I think it was like a third-person action game. Like, I don't think it was a card game necessarily. I think that was way before card games on like consoles were like a thing.
I see.
Or at least a common thing. But I don't know. It's just weird. I could see this game living again, but I would also just take it out back, shoot it, let it die.
This next one's for you. Greg Haddon wrote into us and said, hey, CDC. Like many, I'm playing Control for the first time, as it is a PS Plus game this month, and a thought occurred to me. Why is Sam Lake not put on a pedestal the way other video game writers are, like Kojima? So Sam Lake, of course, is the writer of Max Payne and Alan Wake, Quantum Break, and Control. Mm-hmm. Very well accomplished. That's actually not his real name, by the way. Yeah, he's Finnish.
Yeah, he has he has some name that's like inconceivable to pronounce.
It's Sam Lake's his pen name, but he's been with Remedy from the very beginning, and he isn't very well celebrated, and I don't really know why that is. You're such a big fan of, at least of, you're a fan of Control. I know you have more of a pedigree with their games being on Xbox for so long. So how do you feel about this contention that he's not getting his respect?
I think this is the case for most video game writers, to be completely honest. I don't know if Sam Lake is unique. I think Kojima is the unique one. I think Kojima is unique in the sense that, like, he's really the only writer that is put on a pedestal. It's not like Sam Lake is just this like weird, like, exception to the rule. Like, Sam Lake is the rule. Sam Lake is the dude who, like,
it's well put.
He writes this amazing shit constantly. Like Quantum Break as a video game, like, wasn't the most fun thing, but it was a really cool game, and I'm like really glad I played it. And same thing with like every single Remedy game that I've ever played, and Sam Lake is a big ingredient to that. I don't think you have Remedy without Sam Lake, to be completely blunt. In the same way that I don't know if you have Metal Gear or Death Stranding without Kojima. I just think Kojima is just, maybe he's just more, because as popular as Max Payne and Alan Wake and all of those other Remedy games have gotten, like, they've never gotten as popular as Metal Gear. And I think it really is just, I really do think it is just a matter of, like, hey, this is a really well-accomplished director or a really well-accomplished writer, and like a really unique writer with a really unique vision, who also happened to get that you know, that reach that a AAA game would normally beget. And I think it really is just all because of that. People love Alan Wake, but Alan Wake is not Metal Gear as far as, like, reach and cultural relevance and just general popularity. And I do think if Alan Wake and Control and all these other games had the reach that Metal Gear had, I think Sam Lake would be on that pedestal. I think he would be.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think what Kojima is really good at is self-promotion. It's no offense to him.
No, his name is on everything, and
yeah, he's obsessed with himself. I mean, it's totally, he's an auteur, you know. Like, I think Sam Lake is strikes me as much more modest.
He's definitely more of a shy person, which is funny because he's like his face is Max Payne's face in the first game. They just literally just stapled his face onto this PS.
Yeah, it's awesome.
it's hilarious.
But he's the creative director of Remedy, and we don't know what he's. They're making multiple games now. We don't know which one will be his, and I'm interested to see which one that will be.
I would bet it's not Crossfire.
Yeah, I would imagine it's probably got to be Control 2. You would assume they're going to do a sequel?
Maybe. I don't know. Like, they might do something completely... That's what I like about Remedy. Like, I have no idea. I have no idea what they're going to do next. Like, they could do a second Control. They did a second Max Payne, but they didn't do a second Alan Wake.
Yeah, they did like a 1.5 Alan Wake.
Yeah,
almost,
they did
right?
like a DLC for Alan Wake, and it was great. And they did, Control. And they did Quantum Break.
And they're all... Well, I don't want to say it. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to spoil it.
They didn't make a sequel to Quantum Break, and they made Control, and Control sold softly, I guess, but like made enough money. So like I don't know what the hell they're gonna do, and I hope whatever they do, that Sam Lake is attached to it, because I really do think he is the lifeblood of that studio in a lot of ways. I'm sure that the talent there could make great games, but the uniqueness of Sam Lake is like I can't think of another game like Control. Like I just can't.
Yeah, I think
Janitor is so Sam Lake. Like no one else could have written that character,
They tweeted out the Janitor was fucking weird. People got to play Control again. It's free on PS Plus. That's what we're talking about it. But I think they tweeted out, that GIF that came from The Weeknd's performance at Super Bowl where he's going through the maze or whatever. And I think they said like us in the cigarette or whatever.
The ashtray maze.
Ashtray maze.
Yeah.
So
which was an amazing sequence.
It was. And by the way, I tweeted out. I feel like this is an underrated one. I'm a little mad about it too. I tweeted out me looking for a dungeon looking for a save point in a late game dungeon in an old JRPG. But I'm mad about it because a minute later, I'm not saying he stole it because I think it was too quick for him. I think it's a coincidence. But Jeff Keighley tweeted out a very similar thing and got all of the retweets. And I'm like, that's fucking bullshit.
Yeah,
because I tweeted it first.
It's frustrating to see an obvious joke that you think you kind of thought of. Like I did the same thing like on Twitter the other day where I tweeted like because there were all these stories on Twitter about like, oh, heartwarming, girl sacrifices her future for, and it's like this really dystopian shit. So I tweeted out like, oh, heartwarming chemistry teacher deals meth to pay for cripplingly expensive chemotherapy, and then like a day later, some checkmark tweets a very identical thing, even though it's not an original joke at all. It's like an obvious one.
Yeah, I've only gone after one person one time on Twitter for stealing a joke from me, and it was because they definitely stole it from me. And it was about Kim Jong-il's haircut. And I was really mad about it. So I did say something.
The important things.
All right. Well, because I'm writing material over here. You can't be stealing my material.
It's against the code.
Definitely. All right. Jesper Jansen wrote into us. Said, what's up, Double C and potentially D? God, you guys want D so bad. I got some D for you. I wanted to get your thoughts on remasters, specifically the pricing. I recently saw that the Mass Effect Legendary Edition will be full price. I don't really know how I feel about this. On one hand, I love the series and think they're worth full price, but on the other hand, all the games are almost a decade old at this point. Even the companies seem split on the issue. Some remasters are full price, some are priced lower, and some could even be free if you own the original. For example, the BioShock remasters. How do you feel remasters should be priced? Is it based on value? Would love to hear your input. Much love from Sweden. Thank you, Jesper, for writing into us. I think that value is subjective. I honestly value is important when you're buying something, but I also feel like effort might be something worth noting as well. And I must say, to EA's credit, they are self-promoters. Who the hell knows? It seems like they're working hard on that. They've been working on this for a while. I don't know that it's just a quick port and up-res. They've, like we've already discussed, they tweaked Mass Effect pretty heavily, and they got rid of the booty cam in Mass Effect 2. So it's not like they're just porting it. I understand BioShock's a great example because when the BioShock remasters came out, Chris, they were really cheap, as people will remember. But those were just ports. I mean, they were up-res, they look better, but they weren't remade in any way.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a little bit more value here. And the way that the games interconnect with each other makes them kind of required to be released together. Because it would have been kind of cool to see an a la carte approach, but where maybe the games could be $20 each or $50 together or something. But I have no real problem with full price for this. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't have I don't have a problem with it either. I think Mass Effect, especially as a trilogy, just has so much content and so much value there, and so
That's
much.
A great point.
Like Mass Effect 2, I love Mass Effect 2, and I would easily Like if I didn't already own it, like I would pay like $30 for Mass Effect 2, you know, alone. And so like I think full price is fine, especially because, you know, they are working on fixing a lot of the weird jank of Mass Effect 1, which is like greatly appreciated. Because like right now I could play on backwards compatible on Series X. I could play the originals for free because I have them. But like this is more work going into this, and like it's 60 frames and like 4K, and I get on PC that doesn't matter, but like on a console, yeah, you know what? Why not? I don't see I don't see a problem with full price for this.
Yeah, $60, new achievements, new trophies. That's nice.
Realistically, a remaster should be priced however much people are willing to pay for it. Honestly, like I like there are games that like I would pay money for, that like Medieval. You know, like Medieval is a game that I love. You know, but like. What new person is gonna pay like how much was Medieval, like $30?
Yeah, I want to say 20 or 30.
Yeah. I would have paid,
which is perfect.
I would have paid 60 because I love Medieval. Sure. I adore that series. So it's like I feel like this is like a very subjective conversation, and if you know, if Mass Effect is something that like you've gotten your fill of, and like, you know, you already experienced it and you don't feel the need to jump back into it, then like don't buy it, you know. I think it's totally fine.
I agree with the sentiment, I guess, in one way that he's saying, which is these games are now going to be on the new consoles in perpetuity. Now they're there now. PlayStation Network's backwards compatible, so there's no ability to get the game again or to sell it again. And I think that EA is kind of taking advantage of that too. This is the last chance they're going to be able to sell Mass Effect.
Yeah.
You know, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, because the game's never going to be more expensive than this, right? If you think about it, and it's only going to become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. It'll probably be a PS Plus game. And it's the same thing with BioShock, like where they just kind of got them on PS4 and therefore they will always be available. So from that perspective, for PlayStation gamers anyway, I'm happy about this. And if you think it's too expensive, just wait, because I imagine it's going to be cheaper. And I imagine, well, won't this be on like EA Pass or whatever the fuck they call it? So
yeah, and look, man, I've paid full price for games with that have gotten me far less enjoyment than the entirety of Mass Effect has. You know, that's how I look at it. Where like I remember paying $60 for like, you know, vanilla Destiny, you know, and I remember being like, wow, I could have gotten the entirety of Mass Effect if I just waited.
If you just waited
8 years,
8 years, right?
You know,
and it's interesting. It's an interesting question. I think it is an open-ended one.
Yeah, totally.
But it is intriguing, Chris, that the ability to justify remaking or remastering or re-releasing games is becoming more and more minimal, and so you're going to see, I think, companies extract their final pound of flesh before the games are, you know, made available. I mean, that's just natural. That's just a natural course, you know. So, but if you're not into the price, then wait, because I don't think it's going to remain there forever, and I think they're going to be really motivated to sell it. I'm personally happy to pay $60 for it because I want to send them the message that, hey man, cool, you know, more Mass Effect.
I like Mass Effect. I'll buy it.
Me too. Cody Richter says, hey, CDC, I've been playing through my backlog while waiting for my PS5 to come in and just finished playing through Sleeping Dogs, which in my opinion is a very underrated game. My question is, why was there never a sequel to this game, or at least another game in that universe? It seems like so many great games that deserve sequels never get the light of day, but others that don't deserve it produced multiple sequels. I think you're talking about Prototype in this case. Are you, and I don't mean prototyping games, I mean the series Prototype, which I fucking hate. Are you guys fans of this game and feel the same way? Any other games you feel deserved more, but were left to just one game? Thanks for great content and keep it coming. I want to just talk about Sleeping Dogs. Did you play this game?
I played a little bit of it, yeah. Yeah.
This is an exceptional game. And it is a reasonable question to ask, where is the sequel? Now, it came out in the late summer of 2012. I remember I reviewed it at IGN. And it was created by, so you can go read my review if you want, but it was created by United Front Games, which is a Canadian studio that no longer exists. Now, people will remember them because their first game was a PS3 exclusive called Mod Nation Racers, which came out in 2010 and was like the original kart racer for PlayStation. And then that was made into Little Big Planet karting a couple of years later. So they don't exist anymore. They actually worked on the Master Chief Collection, I think was their last project, just like in a support capability, let's say. But I wanted to bring up this question from Cody because it's interesting, Chris. Sleeping Dogs, first of all, is awesome. But people will know that United Front did try to make a sequel. And not only did they try to make a sequel, but they actually were making an entirely different online game. People will remember this game called Triad Wars. Do you remember this?
No.
By chance?
What?
So Sleeping Dogs 2 was... So Square Enix owns Sleeping Dogs. Square Enix owns the IP. There was going to be a sequel that United Front wanted to make, but Sleeping Dogs took so long to burn on the market that there was no demand for it. And by the time there was, United Front was gone. But in the meantime, they were making a game called Triad Wars, which was a Sleeping Dogs game that was an online game that they canceled. And that's when they basically went away. So if you want to know... So, Cody, I'm answering your question saying they tried. There didn't seem to be enough interest in it. I think it was a massive mistake for them not to have made a true sequel and instead tried to make a multiplayer game. But you have to remember when they made this decision. You know, this was a decision that was made in 2013. The game was canceled in 2015. So it was just a lot different then. I think if they can go back, they realize that they squandered a chance to make a great sequel to the open world game. But go read about it, because they did try to make there's some information out there about what they were going to do with the sequel. And Triad Wars was, I think people played it. I mean, I think there were events for it and shit.
Yeah. There's footage of it.
Yeah.
For certain, like the first 17 minutes implying that, like, you know, there's some completed version of whatever the hell was supposed to be out there.
So RIP United Front, we remember you.
It's a shame.
Or at least I do. And then finally, I like this one from Natalie White to wrap things up. She says, is it time for wood grain consoles to make a comeback? How do you feel about wood grain as an aesthetic, Chris?
I kind of like it, but at the same time, I don't own anything that has wood grain finish on it. You know, like I've seen Teslas with it, like Tesla cars, like with it where the dashboard looks, and it's like, that looks so cool. I love that, because it's like this weird like marriage of like future and like the 70s. But yeah, I don't own anything with a wood grain finish, so maybe I don't. Maybe I just kind of like it in theory or like on paper.
Yeah, nostalgia. It's nostalgic.
It is nostalgic.
It reminds me of Jaguars, like the old, I think they still make Jaguars with wooden. I think maybe they all have them with like a wooden steering wheel and a wooden dashboard. But my neighbor had a Jaguar like that back in the day. I remember. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think actually, now that I think about it, I think I had. Do you remember the Xbox 360 faceplates that you could like snap them off? I think I had a wood finish faceplate.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah, that was another cool idea that I feel like was kind of a nice little customization option.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the lid covers that PSM used to give you for PS1.
Oh, yeah.
You can put stick onto your console.
I will say, though, I'm far more nostalgic for that 90s gray. Or like that late 80s, early 90s gray. Like the PS1.
The Sony Vaio gray?
Like the PS1 and like the NES and like the SNES and the Dreamcast. Like that weird gray that's like so, for some reason, just like it screams video games to me. In ways that
90s to me too, because it reminds me of, my first computer was a Sony Vaio, like my first own computer in 1996, and it was that purple and gray, aesthetic that they always did with the Vaio. And it's very, very reminiscent of that time. The wood grain stuff is very 70s into the early 80s. People used to call their station wagons woodies because they had like the wood grain. But what I was going to say was, of course, this goes back to Atari 2600, which is the most famous of the consoles with wood grain. It would be cool to see that come back, but it is something. It's like old finished basements. You're from the tri-state like I am. The old post-war finished basements with the half wood paneling around and then like wallpaper,
Yeah.
And all of that. All of that reminds me of the old days. It would be cool for that to come back.
What I thought of immediately, if you look up Sekiro wood Xbox, they made like this. I don't know if this is like an official product, but like if you look that up, one of the first images is like this wooden Xbox, like One X or whatever the hell, and it's goddamn gorgeous. Like the aesthetics of it.
Oh yeah, there it is. Oh wow, yeah.
Like I love the look of that thing, but
that's nerdy. Holy shit.
It is so like I wouldn't want the sword on it. Like everything else is like a bit much, and even just like the word Sekiro on the front is a bit much, but like the design, like color wise and like aesthetic, like so yeah, like I think I like wood grain, but I do love that gray, man.
Cool.
I miss that.
Well,
gray.
Thank you, Natalie, for writing in. Maybe we'll get that gray back.
Maybe.
Should have bought the PS1. What do they call it? The PS1 Classic, whatever the hell no. What was it called? PlayStation Classic. That stupid fucking.
I have it.
USB console. I hate that thing. You should have bought two then. All right. Chris, thanks for your time. You have any closing comments before we go?
Nah, man. I'm so hungry. I'm so hungry.
I'm so hungry.
I woke up. I rolled out of bed and I had an hour to like eat, but I just sat here thinking about like I had this thought when I woke up. I was like, oh man, do I remember my life enough? Like I was thinking like, I don't remember what I did last week, and like if anybody asked me like what the hell my life has been, I'd probably be like making half of it up because I don't remember. And then I was thinking like, oh man, how do these people in like movies tell stories so accurately when I can't even remember like.
I think it's so funny you think about that because I you know what I was thinking about recently in regards to this, Chris, was teachers, and specifically how I can't remember many of my teachers' names anymore. Like not when you had one teacher, like I remember my one teacher at elementary school days.
Yeah.
But when you had like, I'm like, who the fuck was my chemistry teacher? What was her name? You know,
yeah.
Who was my math teacher 10th grade? I'm actually like starting to just lose entire years.
Just freaks me
out. Of my life.
Just freaks me out. And I was just sitting there thinking for like an hour instead of feeding myself. And then like the time to record came and I was like, well
now you can, you can unattach your gullet like you did with your Snapple bottle and and get to it. Well, thank you, Chris, for your time. Appreciate you, as always.
Of course.
Thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support of our show. Remember to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia. And of course, come join us on YouTube. Leave us nice reviews on podcast services and all the rest. We appreciate you. We thank you. We'll see you next time for more Sacred Symbols. Until then, goodbye.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is recorded from Central Virginia and Burbank, California, USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is produced by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is Chris Raygun Maldonado. Sacred Symbols' executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level or higher on Patreon, and we're grateful for your kindness and generosity.